What's up? Ghost Fictions is here, and we're back again. This is a story where Issei met Sona and Serafall early and lost his memories. Sona Sitri is considered someone calculating, intelligent and somewhat cold, which helps her in serious moments. But all of that has a reason, and that reason came back after a few years, making her determined not to let him go again and to do everything possible to make him forgive her. But before we start, please consider subscribe to the channel and give this video a like. Don't forget to check the description for more informations. Also, this is a translate version, you may find some mistakes, specifically in the character's gender. Issei of course is a male, this time no changes in the genders. Now, let's get into part 1. It was just another morning in the city of Kuo, adults were opening their businesses, young people were going to school, it was exactly the same morning as every day and every year. Although now there was something different, and that was that in the Kuo Academy where before only women entered, now men could register to study there. Sona Sitri, or better known as Sona Sitri at Kuo Academy, was in her second year of high school. Because of her excellent grades and behavior, she easily became the student council president, although even if she wasn't the best student in the school, she would still have become the council president. On this day, classes started and she was in the student council room looking out the window at the students coming in, making sure that those in charge of seeing who was late were actually doing their job. Kaichu? Sona heard someone behind her calling her, and when she turned around she found herself with her queen and for the moment only member of her peerage. Sona. Tell me, Tsubaki. She answered calmly, sitting in her chair next to a desk with several papers. Tsubaki. The opening ceremony will begin soon, we must go, Kaichu. He informed her, receiving a nod from the brunette. Tsubaki Shinra, queen of Sona Sitri and the only member of her peerage, wears glasses and has long black hair that reaches the back of her knees, while her king has short black hair that almost reaches his shoulders and, like her, wears glasses. They both have several things in common, their hair is black, they wear glasses, they are part of the student council, they have a serious attitude towards everyone, the only difference they have is that Tsubaki is a little taller than Sona, her hair is longer, and unlike Sona who has small breasts, Tsubaki has much more developed breasts. Sona. You're right, let's go. She said, standing up and walking towards the large double doors, followed by her queen. They both arrived at the gymnasium which would be used for the opening ceremony every year. Sona watched the new students very carefully in case she felt something in them, but there was nothing. Since she was the student council president, it was her duty to go up first and say a few words, and then have the first year student with the highest grade in the entrance exam go up and say something. The one who went up was a girl, something that was normal there since it was always a girls' school, and it was not a surprise that a boy went up, since almost all the men who were there only went in to be surrounded by girls and fulfill their fantasies. When the ceremony ended, each student went to their classrooms to begin classes. After a week, just a week since classes started, Sona was already sinking from exhaustion because of the matters she had to attend to frequently all day, and right now she would have to repeat it. The knock sounded at the door, she gave permission to enter to whoever was on the other side. The girl came in with an angry face, at that the brunette let out a sigh of frustration, upon learning the reason for the girl's visit. Sona. How can I help you? She asked with good manners as she was taught. Girl. Kaichu, please do something to get them expelled, today they spied on us again while we were changing, and even if we cover the hole they make another one, we can't stand it anymore. She said, very upset and somewhat tired. Sona. Okay, I'll talk to them and give them a warning, and if they continue like this I'll have them expelled, don't worry, they're even bothering me with all the trouble they cause. She said, massaging her eyebrow, receiving a thank you from the girl. Tsubaki, please bring the worst of those three, I'll talk to them separately, I feel like if I tell them together they won't listen to me. She asked her queen, who nodded and proceeded to leave in search of one of the three perverts of Kuo. After a few minutes the door opened a little, revealing Tsubaki's figure. Tsubaki. I already brought it, Kaichu. She informed her king, who was signing papers at his desk without having raised his gaze to the front. Sona. Please come in, both of you. She said to them both, letting them come in. The brunette felt her queen stand next to her and that the person she brought was a few steps in front of her desk, so she used her typical posture, placing her elbows on the table, interlacing her fingers and covering her mouth with her hands with her eyes closed. Sona. Do you know why you are here? She asked him, hoping for an answer soon. I think so. He answered with an annoyed tone, something that the brunette didn't like. Sona. In that case it will be simpler, there have been several complaints about what you and your friends have done this week, in just 1 week there have been 26 complaints about you spying on girls while they change clothes in their clubs, this is unacceptable. She told him, still without looking at him. And therefore I have decided to give you a warning. If you don't stop doing that I will be forced to expel you and not allow you to enroll in this school again. What? You have to be joking," he said, raising his voice, surprised and at the same time annoyed. "Sona. I don't joke, I never do, you've been warned so you better be careful from now on if you want to continue studying here." Issei. "But I've never spied on them, whenever that happened those two would appear running next to me, and thanks to that the girls saw that he was the only man there, so they thought I was the one spying on them." "Sona. I don't want to hear your lies," she said out loud, making him tremble with anger. "The misunderstanding would be acceptable if it were once or twice, but in each of the complaints they talk about you, so I find it hard to believe that you are so unlucky to appear right at that moment. If you don't have another lie to tell you can leave," she said, starting to open her eyes slowly at once. When she opened them she saw that the boy had his back turned and that he had brown hair and normal color everywhere. But when he took 2 steps to leave, he turned his body slightly to look at her intently. And once she looked at him, Sona's body was petrified. Just by seeing his hair from behind she didn't identify him, and she wouldn't remember him by his face either, but that look full of anger and contempt directed at her made her remember something that happened to her years ago. In the cave the only light was from some crystals on the walls and on the floor, and apart from that there was also the light of several magic circles with a Sitri crest, which were in the hands of several devils who surrounded a brown-haired boy. The boy was surrounded and seemed to have no escape. If all the servants of the Sitri house attacked him, he would surely die, but instead of being afraid or panicking, the only expression he showed was hatred towards the girl who was several meters in front of him. That girl with short black hair and glasses had a scared expression, and tears threatened to come out in her eyes, even though she was being protected by the servants and guards who were aiming at the brown-haired man. "You even told them about this place just to kill me. Really? I was wrong about you," he told her with hatred in every word, making her cry at once. "I thought you would believe me, but I only sentenced myself by trusting you." "Servant. Sona-sama, please leave here, this is not something you should see," he said to the girl the brown-haired boy was talking to. "Guard. Let's get this over with, we can't let him get away or live much longer after what he did." "I already told you. I didn't try to kill him." "Guard. Yes, of course, even Sona-sama detected the lies you were trying to make people believe. You will not fool anyone, child, and that is why the time of your death has come," she told him, making the magic circle that came out of her hand shine a stronger blue color like everyone else's. "I guess this is goodbye," he said, addressing the brunette who was looking at him with tears. He turned around, but turned his head a little to look at her. "Goodbye, Sitri," he said with hatred and disgust, something that broke her heart when she heard how he called her. He quickly pulled something out of his pocket and threw it forcefully to the ground, raising a smoke screen that caused all the guards and servants to start coughing, causing the circles to break. "Guard. Cough cough curse, secure cough the area cough cough." Once the smoke cleared they saw that Issei was nowhere to be found, so they launched a search everywhere without success. But that didn't matter to Sona, her thoughts were on that look he gave her at the last second and the words without a trace of affection like the ones he always said to her. But that was obvious after all. She didn't believe him, and when she didn't believe him when he looked for her to tell her how someone tried to frame him for trying to kill her father, she called the guards revealing her location, and he managed to get to that cave where she had already told her parents about that place. But then she found a letter in his room while he was still being searched for, where he said everything he had planned to do with her in those days, and when she read it, she realized that she was a fool not to believe him when he told her that he did not try to kill her father. She quickly went out to look for him, but soon found out that they had cornered him in the cave, which made her feel bad, since if they found him there it was her fault for telling his location. And just like years ago, she again encountered those eyes of hatred and disgust. "Someone like you who doesn't believe in others even if they explain things to you isn't worth saying anything else. Goodbye. Kaichu, I'm leaving," he said, turning his back on the two and leaving the room. Those words, although they were not the same, were similar and more so with that way of speaking, which made his chest hurt. He bit his lower lip, but even doing that did not prevent the tears from falling from his eyes, alarming his queen because of it. "Tsubaki. Kaichu, what's wrong? Are you feeling unwell?" Sona didn't answer him, she just kept her gaze on the door where she saw him leave again without believing him. Although she didn't know it was him, she didn't believe him, and that brought repercussions, causing more tears to come out of her eyes, making her queen not know what to do to calm her down. "Sona. Issei," she said in a low voice with her eyes closed. After that fateful and unexpected reunion, Sona remained in her chair with tears falling down her face, while her queen tried somehow to make her stop crying. He had never seen her like this. Since he met her she always kept a serious face, and if she showed a smile or even an angry expression it was very rare, extremely rare. Only when her sister visited her did she get embarrassed and show emotions. But now she was crying without any signs of stopping, and even though she had her eyes closed and was passing her hands over them, the tears did not stop. "Tsubaki. Kaichu, please try to calm down." "Sona. I'm Sniff. Fine, Tsubaki. Don't worry. She told her, able to calm down a little. When he opened his eyes they were red, he took a deep breath and let out all the air from his lungs and stared at the ceiling of the room. Tsubaki. Kaichu. What happened? She asked him, giving him her glasses, which he cleaned because of the tears he had. The brunette received the glasses, thanking him for the gesture of cleaning them. Sona. It's nothing, Tsubaki, just. It was a memory of something that happened a long time ago. She said, returning her gaze to the door. Tsubaki. And that memory. Does it have something to do with Haidu Issei? She asked him, making his hair stand on end. Sona. Haidu Issei. Really? It really is him. I was finally able to find him, finally. I can try to fix my mistake. She thought, wiping away a tear that fell from her eye. Tsubaki. Did you know each other before? She asked him, somewhat surprised. Sona. That's right, but why are you so surprised by that? Tsubaki. Well, because of his reputation, I was surprised that I knew her before that, and because there is little information about her life. Sona. Not enough information? She asked, raising an eyebrow. Tsubaki. I checked his personal information, what school he went to, his family, that kind of stuff, but for some reason there was nothing. The only thing there was that he bought a house a few months ago in the city, and now he enrolled in the school. He explained, grabbing some papers from his own desk. Sona. There's nothing about your childhood. Tsubaki. That's right, there's nothing, it's like it never existed. When I saw this it made me wonder where she was all those years. He said, looking at his queen from the corner of his eye. She looked at her king, who was silently debating in his head whether or not to tell her that information, until he let out a sigh as a sign that he had already decided what to do. Sona. He was in hell. She said, surprising her queen. And not just anywhere, he was in the Sitri mansion, and he was my first friend. She said, seeing how her queen had her mouth open. Tsubaki. Her friend. But if he's her friend, why did he seem like he didn't know her? She asked, remembering the brunette's attitude, which was as if she was talking to a complete stranger. Sona. Did it really look like that? She asked him, surprised, since she always had her eyes closed so she didn't see his expressions. Tsubaki. I'm absolutely sure he doesn't know who he really is. Sona. He doesn't know who I am. He didn't recognize me? She asked herself with a hand on her chin. Tsubaki. Kaichu, seeing how it seems that he didn't recognize her and how they became enemies, I suggest that she first talk to him to lighten things up, since it seems that's why he hates her by not believing her. She suggested, wanting her king not to be sad that his first friend despises him. Sona. About that. As soon as he remembers me he'll hate me even more. She said, lowering her head, sad and upset with herself. Tsubaki. May I know the reason for that? Sona. I'll just say that something similar happened before, and because I didn't believe him I never saw him again. She said, showing a face of melancholy and sadness, something that surprised her queen. After that, Tsubaki went to class while Sona stayed checking some papers and signing, instead of being in class, and even though she didn't go to class, she still got the best grade in the whole school, which allowed her to not go to class. When it was time for the second recess, Sona went out in search of Issei's classroom, and when she arrived she could see him in his seat looking out the window that looked out the back of the school. She knocked on the door, drawing everyone's attention, even the brunette, who looked at her with a frown and looked out the window again. Seeing that made the brunette's heart ache, but she knew that would happen, so she decided to fix the problem as soon as possible. Sona. Excuse me, Haidu Issei, could you come? I would like to talk to you. She said, making the brown-haired boy the center of attention. The girls who were inside and outside the classroom smiled happily, believing that they would tell the brunette that he was officially expelled. Issei reluctantly stood up and walked towards the brunette, who for some reason made an enormous hatred and contempt arise from within, and that was something he did not understand why. Sona. Let's talk in a more private place. She said, starting to walk, followed by him, leaving all the girls confused. Sona took him to the student council room, which was empty at a request of Tsubaki, in order to speak with him alone. He motioned for her to sit on the chair in front of the one she was sitting on. When she did, she cleared her throat, and although it may not have seemed like it, she was very nervous to have the brunette in front of her after so long. Issei. What does Kaichu want to talk about? He asked, sounding annoyed. Sona. I would like to apologize for not believing you before. She said, seeing that he didn't say anything to her words. Issei. How do you know that what I said was true and not a lie, so that you don't consider me a pervert? After all, you don't know me well enough to know if I'm a good liar or not. He told her, making her nervous since she had no reason to say that she could trust him. Nothing. Then you're just apologizing because you believed what I said, and not because you really realized that they were always accidents. If you're going to apologize, please do it when you really want to. he finished saying, standing up and starting to walk to the door, but when he took the handle he stopped and turned to her. "By the way, have we met before?" That question made her heart skip a beat and made her more nervous than she already was, but with all her being she tried not to show it. "Sona. Why do you ask that, Haidu?" Issei. "I know it will sound like an offense, but when I am in front of you, I feel a lot of hatred and contempt, and for some reason your face seems familiar to me, but when I try to remember it my head starts to hurt because of that. Have we met before?" Sona. "I'm sorry but no, our first meeting was on this day." Issei. "I see, that was all, now I'm leaving," he said, opening the door and closing it, disappearing from sight. Sona. "Headaches trying to remember where he saw me." "I see. His memory was erased," she said, shedding a few tears that she didn't know if they were from relief, knowing that he didn't remember that moment, or if they were from sadness, knowing that all the memories they had together were no longer in his mind. She wiped away her tears before Tsubaki came back as she didn't want him to see her like that again. If he said that he felt hatred when he saw her, that means that in some corner of his memories those memories were still there, and to remedy his mistake, he would try to first make that hatred diminish a little, and then he would try to make his memory come back, which would not be easy and would take time to do. After that meeting, Issei returned to his classroom and stayed looking out the window in his seat as before without giving any signs of going to eat something. He just stayed in that place doing exactly the same thing, even when the teacher was giving classes. And the worst thing was that even though he barely paid attention in class, every time they asked him something he answered the question correctly or did the exercise in an impressive and easy way, something that no one could tell him much about since, even though it may not seem like it, the brown-haired boy was very intelligent. When classes ended he left first, and since he was not part of any club he went straight home. Even though he lives alone, he lives in a house, but it wasn't just any house, it was the house that belonged to his parents, or at least that's what he remembers. He came in, turned on the lights and started doing the homework that was given to him, which he finished in a few minutes, so he made himself some food, and when he finished he stayed watching television for a while until he yawned, but he left the TV on, even though he wasn't watching it anymore. Issei. "This is so boring. That feeling I get when I'm around Kaichu is so strange, it's like I've known her for a long time, but I never met her, and she even told me, did she lie to me? Did she notice that I lost my memory? But if that were the case I wouldn't have a reason to keep it hidden. I'm tired, I better go to sleep," he said, talking to himself. He turned off the television and went to his room. It took him a while, but he managed to fall asleep. The next day when he arrived at the school grounds he received stares from the girls and could hear some whispers that were not whispers where they said that the beast appeared and things like that which made him angry, but he held back from yelling at them since it would not serve any purpose, it would only get him labeled as aggressive as well as perverted. During breaks, the only male classmate she had in her class, named Motohama and Mitsuda, would talk to her as if they were lifelong friends and show her magazines of completely naked girls with huge breasts, which made the girls look at them with bad eyes. The brown-haired boy couldn't stand it, he didn't want to be put together with those two, so to make that clear, he took one of those magazines to the great happiness of the two perverts when they saw how after so much time, he finally grabbed the magazines under the gaze of the girls who continued with their disgusted looks. But all that changed as soon as the brunette grabbed the magazine with both hands and began to cut it into small pieces to the terror of those two and the amazement of the girls. Issei. "Let's get this straight once and for all, you couple of perverts," he spoke, making them tremble for some reason. "I'm not like you, I'm not a pervert, and if you thought I was like you just because the girls you spied on hit me, you're very wrong. The reason the girls hit me is because whenever they escaped I was walking around and they thought I was the one spying on them, and thanks to you now I have a warning of being able to be expelled even though I didn't do anything, so stop bothering me once and for all, or I'll have me expelled for sending you both to the hospital," he said, making the two tremble who were scared to death by a kind of aura that came out of the brunette towards them. The two nodded at his words, and Issei just sat in his seat and stared out the window as his new habit, leaving the monkey-faced bald man and the black-haired man with glasses breathing heavily and with sweat on their faces, while the girls were with their mouths open, stupefied by the brown-haired man's explosion. And it wasn't just the girls who were inside the classroom who heard all that, those who were in the hallway heard it very clearly, so without delay that event spread throughout the school in a matter of minutes. And when that event reached Sona's ears thanks to her queen, she was very surprised to learn of the brown-haired boy's attitude, which made her have a lump in her throat and a pain in her chest. Sona. His attitude is totally contrary to how it was before, that happy and cheerful Issei is not there and everything. It's my fault. I swear, Issei, I swear that I will fix my mistake in any way, and you will return to being that radiant person that you were, she said in her mind, showing pure determination in her eyes. It had been about 2 months since Sona met Issei again. She has tried everything to get closer to him and for him to consider her a friend or someone close, but nothing worked. And it was all because of that feeling he had inside him, that feeling that told him that she betrayed him, that she almost made him end up dead, that she didn't believe in him, even when he stayed to tell her that it wasn't him when he could have escaped at any moment. Right now Sona was sitting in class, but she wasn't paying attention, which was unusual for her. She had slight dark circles under her eyes with a face that highlighted that she was irritated, tired and frustrated. Out of fear, the teacher didn't ask her anything about the class, or if she was okay. She didn't even glance at her like the other students. A redhead with big breasts, nice curves and a nice ass looked curiously at the brunette. She had never seen her like that. Sometimes she saw her upset, like for example when she found out about her arranged engagement which she already took care of. But he had never seen her like that. It was like he was seeing a new side of his friend that she never showed, and that made him wonder if she was keeping something hidden. She needed to know what it was, and she would get it. When the bell rang for recess to start, Sona stood up, grabbed her things, and walked to the student council. Even if you have excellent grades, you still have to go to class sometimes. When she arrived, she saw that her queen was already there organizing some leaves. The moment she saw her, she approached her and greeted her. "Tsubaki, were you able to clear your head a bit in Kaichu class?" she asked worriedly upon seeing the face her king was wearing. "Sona, not at all. I can't stop thinking about what I can do," she said as she reached her chair, collapsing into it and leaving her head on her desk. Tsubaki had been helping her in every plan she created, so she always saw how bad she got when she saw that she always failed. At first she got angry with the brunette, and when she was going to criticize him, Sona stopped her from doing so after all, although she doesn't remember she is in every right to ignore her. "Tsubaki, Kaichu, how about you just let things go on as normal? He might get close to you at some point without you having to force the issue. At this rate, you'll only be damaging his health and making him tired of your attempts to be friends." Sona listened to every word he said and agreed with him completely. With each attempt to get closer to him and form a bond of friendship, she felt that he seemed more and more irritated and tired when she approached him. If he continued like this, what she didn't want would happen. He tells her something horrible about leaving her alone once and for all. If even with his memory erased he hates her, he didn't think he could bear that. He finally found her, but he can't do anything. He has no memories of what happened, but he still hates her. Just before she answers her queen, the door opens revealing a redhead with long, well-proportioned hair, walking with a smile towards the brunette who, thanks to her arrival, had to sit up straight in the chair. "Sona, what's wrong, Riaz? Riaz, I've noticed that you're feeling unwell, and I'd like to know what's causing your current state," she said, noticing immediately how he made a face. "Sona, it's nothing, Riaz, if you only came for that then leave," she said as kindly as possible. "Riaz, come on Sona, we've been friends for as long as we can remember. Something is bothering you, and I want to help you fix it," she said, trying to get her to tell her everything. "Sona, yeah right, you're just curious and with your attitude I'm sure you won't stop bothering me to tell you," she thought, already knowing from miles away why I was insisting so much. "I'm sorry Riaz, but I won't tell you why I'm like this. It's something personal, so I'll solve this problem by myself. If you have nothing else to do here please leave." Riaz frowned a little seeing that he won't really tell her anything so she could just walk out of there. But that doesn't mean she'll just leave the topic there, she'll know what's bothering her so much somehow. As she walked towards her queen and friend, she passed through a corner of another hallway and collided with someone. Because of the speed at which they were both going, she ended up falling to the ground. "Excuse me, hold my hand." Riaz took the hand of what by his voice was a boy. When he fell to the ground he closed his eyes, and when he opened them he saw a fairly normal brunette. But she noticed something strange about him. It was as if she had met him or seen him before. "Riaz, don't worry, it's also my fault for walking so close to the wall," she said smiling at him, but something happened that surprised her. Normally when she smiles at someone, especially a human male, he is in awe of her smile or how pretty she was. But this young man did not seem to be bothered by his face, which many say is beautiful, or by his smile. "Riaz, I think you're a first year, right?" she asked him, to which he nodded. "Then let me introduce myself, I'm Riaz Gremory, a pleasure," she said without noticing how people looked at them. "Issei. I'm Haidu Issei. Are you second or third?" "Riaz. Second Haidu-kun." "Issei. Then it's a pleasure Riaz senpai. By the way, can I have my hand back?" he said, making her realize that he was trying to get her to let go of his hand. "Riaz. Oh yeah, sorry about that," she said, embarrassed for having held his hand for so long without realizing it. "Issei. Fine. Then I'm leaving," he said, passing by her and moving away from her. "Riaz. Her face looks familiar. I must be imagining things," she said, ignoring that encounter and continuing on her way to her queen. After that, Sona did what Tsubaki suggested, continue with her school life, without trying to force her relationship with the brown-haired boy, which did her good since she was able to rest a little more by not having to suffer the brown-haired boy's ignorance all the time. During this time Ria saw the brunette from time to time and saw that he was somewhat lonely and serious. She heard that he was a pervert, but to her, it didn't seem like that at all, since when she spoke to him before she remembered that at no time did he look at her breasts or her butt, at all times he looked her in the eyes. Sona also added someone to her peerage, which was Tsubasa Yura occupying the rook piece. Things went on their course and there came a point where Sona hated that day. Parents visiting day. Parents or relatives could go to see what they are like in class. The reason she hated that day is because on that very day she knows that someone will appear who will make her break her barrier of seriousness. Right now Sona was in the student council signing some things and there were a few minutes left before classes started. Next to her were her queen Tsubaki Shinra, Tsubasa Yura and Kusaka Ria, who is the first bishop of Sona. The two brunettes were looking at some papers and signing them, while the other two were seeing which papers needed to be seen by both of them. Sona. Girls, that's enough, classes will start soon, and since your relatives will come, do your best. She told them, receiving a look from the three of them who understood her words, so they stood up and began to leave. Sona also had to go to class praying that the person she had in mind would not show up that day. The first class went normally for some while, not for others. For Issei that day was a day like any other. He saw how his classmates talked to their parents with a certain feeling of jealousy and nostalgia in their eyes. Although he didn't remember anything about his life, for some reason he clearly remembered his parents, but he couldn't remember the reason why they weren't with him, but something told him that they were dead. When classes continued and now they had to make a clay sculpture, Issei didn't even know what he could do. He started thinking about what to do until something occurred to him, and he began to mold the clay with the image of his head. Teacher. Hayo. Haidu. What you did is amazing. He praised him for the perfect creation that was before his eyes. Not only him and the other parents and students, the brown-haired boy was also surprised to see how well it turned out. What he made was a perfect design of an oriental dragon with its mouth open as if it were roaring. Issei. For some reason I feel like someone is proud of this sculpture. After several girls tried to buy the sculpture from him to no avail, Issei now walked around the school because it was recess time. Then he saw a girl coming in front of him who was jumping a little, making the two pigtails of her dark hair move all the time. And that wasn't the only thing that moved with her jumps, her large breasts also swung up and down, not very lightly or abruptly. Apart from that, for some reason she was wearing an outfit that looked like a magical girl's, and anyone could tell by the staff she held in her hand. And all the time he had been at that school, nothing had made him feel excited or nervous. But that girl, with just one look, seemed to fall in love at first sight, something that surprised him, since he didn't even know her tastes in girls. Feeling his gaze, the girl stopped next to him and looked at him with a smile. As no one said anything, she just tilted her eyes slightly, causing the brown-haired boy to get lost in her violet eyes, and how pretty she looked when doing that. Are you okay? She asked him in a lively voice as she brought her face closer to his. Issei blinked twice and instinctively took a step back, then he felt his ears get hot as well as his face, so he assumed he blushed. He quickly looks away, covering his face with his right arm. Issei. I'm fine. Why are you wearing those clothes? He asked, feeling nervous for the first time about talking to a girl. Serafall. That's because I'm the amazing Mahu Shoujo Serafall who will cleanse this world of dark creatures and evil. She said, striking a pose at such speed that it made her skirt rise a little. Issei looked around to see if anyone else was there, and when he didn't see anyone, he let out a sigh of relief that no one had been able to see his underwear except for him. At this point Issei was sure his heart would jump out of his chest at how beautiful and charming she looked doing those things in that magical girl outfit. Issei. It's rare to see someone come to school wearing that. What's your name? He asked, wanting to know his name as soon as possible. But what he heard made the nerves he felt gradually disappear, replaced by a feeling of hatred and irritation. Serafall. My name is Serafall Sitri, nice to meet you. She said, extending her hand with her cheerful attitude. But it was strange that the nervous girl who was in front of her tensed up upon hearing her name, and she was able to detect thanks to the fact that she knew many people how her eyes filled with hatred, something that surprised her a lot. Issei. Yes. Try. He asked, feeling a pain in his head causing him to grab it. That name. I heard it before. I'm sure of that, but where? He said, forgetting that the brunette was there listening to what he said. Serafall retracted her hand upon hearing him say those things, and seeing how he held his head in pain, she realized that his memory was erased, but if a human who knew the name of his clan had his memory erased, it couldn't be good. When he was going to ask him if he was okay, even though he wasn't, he saw how his face showed anger and contempt towards no one since his face was down. But seeing that face, those expressions along with what he said a few seconds ago, she covered her mouth with her hands when she recognized the brunette. Serafall. It's Issei. No, it can't be him, it must be a coincidence. Issei. Sorry about that. It's just that your last name seemed familiar to me. He told her, seeing how she seemed to fake her smile. Great, I already scared her, I'm amazing, I'm Haidu Issei, sorry for not saying my name before, and sorry again for what happened just now. He told her without realizing that she took a half step. Serafall. No. Don't worry about it, I have to go now, I agreed to eat with my sister, bye. She said, lying, managing to get out of there and quickly go to where Sona was. Issei stared at where he went and began to scold himself and hit his forehead with his hand. Issei. Great Issei, really great, you finally find a girl you like and the first thing you do is scare her away. Why did that name sound familiar to me? She didn't seem to recognize me, so someone in her family must have known me. But I can't go and ask her if her family knows me, I'd look like a weirdo wanting her attention. He spoke to himself as he walked towards where he will have his next class. While he was going to his next class, totally discouraged by scaring away the girl he likes, this girl finally arrived at the student council, suddenly opening the door, surprising her little sister by the sudden entrance, as well as the queen of this, since the three of them were the only ones in the place. Sona. One-sama, what? I was going to ask her what was wrong, seeing how nervous she was. But he stopped when he saw how she approached and arrived in a second in front of his table. Serafall Sona, Issei is here. As soon as she said those words, Sona's heart seemed to stop and her body trembled with nerves because her sister had met the brown-haired boy who supposedly tried to kill her father. She knew he would hate that day, but he never thought he would hate it with all his soul. Sona's brain seemed to stop along with her heart upon hearing her sister's words. One of the things he feared most would happen was that someone from his family would meet Issei. If that happened, it was possible that the news that the one who tried to kill Lord Sitri had reappeared would put Issei's life at risk. Sona. One-sama, how? Serafall. I ran into him by chance while I was walking here, at first I didn't recognize him, but when I said the name Sitri he seemed to be getting a headache. I got a little worried seeing that he seemed to be in a lot of pain, but then he said that the name Sitri sounded familiar to him, and that's when I noticed how his face expressed hatred. So Tan, did you know he was studying here? He asked her, seeing how she seemed to get depressed and nervous. Sona. Yes, I knew. She said, lowering her head, waiting for a complaint from her sister for not telling anyone. But instead she only received a warm hug. She was surprised to see that her sister, instead of yelling at her or something like that, hugged her and tried to comfort her. Serafall. You've probably been trying to get close to him this whole time, right? Sona let herself be hugged and nodded, causing Serafall to hug her tighter. Sona. Nothing worked, he always ended up ignoring me, I could sense his hatred and resentment towards me, even though he doesn't remember anything. She told him, unconsciously shedding tears. Did you also receive the same? He asked her, looking into her eyes. Serafall thought about the brunette's behavior when he talked to her and compared it to what her little sister told her. She never received a look of hatred as she says she received. The only thing she noticed was the boy's shyness and nervousness when talking to her. Serafall. No, he spoke very happily to me, I think. But those words, Sona and Tsubaki stood with their eyes wide open in stupefaction, but the one who was worse off was Sona, as she saw that the brunette kept his serious expression the whole time. He didn't smile at anyone, and it was even rare for him to talk to someone on his own. But now her sister told her that she spoke to her happily. That was something she could not and did not want to believe, that the first person she had shown a smile to was her sister. Sona. One-sama. Who started the conversation? If she said it was Issei, I would think he definitely fell in love with her. Serafall. It was me. She said, taking a gigantic weight off his shoulders. Sona. I see. One-sama, you should know that her memory was erased. She said, seeing how she nodded her head. Please don't do anything to make her remember. Serafall. What? Why? Sona. If he does that, I'm absolutely sure he'll hate me even more and I might never see him again. She told him, grabbing the edge of her skirt and squeezing it tightly. Serafall. It's okay, so Tan, I won't tell him anything. Sona. Thanks. And by the way, don't call me so Tan. Classes ended and to Issei's disappointment, he was unable to see Serafall again. He was asking several boys and girls, to everyone's surprise. He asked them if they knew anyone with the last name Sitri, or if they had seen a girl with black hair with 2 pigtails and a magical girl costume. Of course he couldn't find anything on her, it was like she had just appeared so he could fall in love with her and leave. He stopped to rub his eyes with his hand in front of a store that sells manga, cosplays, novels and other things. Seeing that place, the brunette's outfit came to mind, and if by chance he found her again, he would want to find a topic that she liked just to see that smile of hers. So he entered the store, which was large and had several people looking and buying. Issei walked through the aisles of the manga section, hoping to find the one the brunette cosplayed, but he couldn't find it. He was about to give up until he finally found the one he was looking for. Issei. Magical Girl Milky Spiral 7. He said her name, seeing how on the cover there was a girl with the same clothes that Serafall was wearing. With this, the next time I see her I will have something to talk about. He said, excitedly thinking about being able to see her soon. He doesn't know why, but he was very much in love with her, even though they spoke very little, but he would do anything to make her fall in love with him. Of course he wouldn't go to extremes where he would make a fool of himself just to get her attention. As he started walking to buy the manga, he heard someone running behind him and complaining. "No. I'm late, they've already sold out." Issei, upon hearing that, turned around and the same thing happened to him as before. He was stunned to see Serafall, who was standing with one cheek puffed out. He woke up from the trance only when he saw that she seemed depressed, so instinctively he tightened his grip on the manga. Feeling the manga in his hand again, he remembered the words the brunette said a few seconds ago. The manga in his hand was the last one there was. Issei approached her slowly, and when he reached her side, he didn't know whether to touch her shoulder to get her attention or talk to her. So he chose to do both. "Issei. Sorry," he said, touching his shoulder, making him jump in fright. "Sorry, I didn't mean to scare you." Serafall. "Oh please, this is too much of a coincidence. What are you doing here?" she thought, trying not to look nervous in front of the brunette. "Don't worry, I usually scare you." Issei. "Sure. Oh right," he said, trying to find a way to give her the manga. "I heard what you said before just in time. Here," he said, handing her the manga she wanted. Serafall's eyes widened at the sight of the manga, and a beautiful smile spread across her face, bringing color to her entire being. "Serafall. Do you really want to give it to me?" she asked him, still having that smile, to which the brown-haired boy nodded, making her take the manga. "Thank you. Thank you." She was so excited to be able to get that manga that she jumped for joy, letting the brunette appreciate every trace of happiness she radiated. And without realizing it, she excitedly hugged Issei, which made him freeze like a stone when he felt the hug and Serafall's big breasts on his torso. He was about to hug her back, but it was at that moment that she realized what she did, and she pulled away with a blush on her face, showing a lot of embarrassment. Serafall. Sorry, I got a little too excited." Issei. "No. There is no problem," he said, feeling his heart beating fast and a feeling of happiness at having been hugged by the brunette. "Did you want the manga that much?" Serafall. "Of course. This manga contains a special story. It's a limited edition, and they only sell 100 copies in some places. I've been waiting for them to bring them here for a long time, and for a moment I thought I was late, but thanks to you I'm extremely happy." Issei. "You know. I know it will sound weird, but you can trust me in anything," he said, looking away while scratching his cheek. Serafall. "In that case, when I need your help, you won't be able to back out," she said, pointing at him with her finger. Issei. "Her childish attitude is enchanting me, she's too cute and beautiful. Of course I won't." Serafall. "Thanks for giving me the manga, I think I should go now," she said, taking a few steps towards the cash register. Issei. "Wait." He stopped her without thinking. "Hey. How about one of these days we go out together to get to know each other? I wanted to watch that series, and seeing as how you're a big fan I thought you could tell me some things," he told her, ultra nervous as he was practically securing a date with Serafall. Serafall was not stupid and ignorant as some devils thought because of her childish attitude. She opened her eyes slightly when she noticed how he almost proposed to go on a date with the lie of telling her about his favorite anime. Serafall. Sure," she replied, seeing how happy he seemed with her answer. "It's totally the opposite of what Sona told me." Issei. "In that case, do you have a cell phone?" Serafall. "Huh. Oh, yes, I do have one," she replied, still a little surprised by the invitation. Issei. "Well then, how about we exchange numbers?" Serafall. "Sure, this way. We'll organize that outing together more easily," she said, blushing a little at the thought that she had just promised the brown-haired boy a date. They exchanged numbers and then both went their separate ways. When Issei got home he was in a very good mood. He managed to secure a date with a girl he liked and got her number. Finally there was something that gave excitement and meaning to his life. The next day when he was arriving at school, everyone looked at him in surprise to see how he had a radiant smile while emanating an aura of happiness. Many were trying to deduce the reason, but only the girls were able to guess the reason, while the men, upon thinking about that option, started to laugh and immediately denied that option. Only the girls realized that the expressionless and cold Issei had fallen in love. There were still several minutes left until classes started, and right now Sona was walking through the halls with her queen, talking about things about budgets and other things about school. At that Sona stopped walking, confusing Tsubaki because of that. Seeing that she kept her gaze lost ahead, she looked at that place, and in doing so, she immediately understood her state. They were both watching Issei smile as he walked towards them and passed by them without even noticing them. Sona turned around ready to talk to him, but then she saw him take his cell phone out of his pocket because it was vibrating, and when she saw the reason, her smile increased, which left her stunned. She knew that smile could only mean one thing. Someone had touched his heart. Issei. Great, she replied. She said happily, being heard by both brunettes, making Sona's fear come true. Tsubaki. Kaichu. Let's go. He said in a low voice, taking her by the shoulders and making her walk to where they were going. In the student council room was a nervous Tsubaki and a furious Sona screaming and throwing various things. Sona. Who is it? Who was that smile directed at? Tsubaki. Kaichu, please calm down. He asked her without wanting to get closer, seeing her so angry. Sona. But Tsubaki, didn't you see how his smile became brighter when he saw his phone? It's obvious that he met a girl. She shouted at him, showing her eyes shining because she wanted to cry. I tried to get closer, I tried to make him consider me a friend, but he always ignored me, and now, in what seems like a day, someone reached his heart. Tsubaki approached Sona this time and hugged her. Sona didn't try to get out of his embrace, she just stayed there, now releasing the tears that wanted to come out. Sona. It's not fair. I already suffered for betraying him, I hate myself for not believing him and almost causing his death, but I've tried to fix that, but he still hates me. Tsubaki. When Tsubaki heard that, her heart sank at seeing her friend so distressed, and when she heard her name, she felt that that simple word already contained despair and sadness. Sona. What can I do? At this rate I'll lose him again. Tsubaki. At first I told you that you should leave him and it was good to do that, but now I think you should try to be at least friends with him again. He said, making her raise her head. Sona. But will it work? It didn't work before and he even got upset because of my insistence. Tsubaki. Kaichu, are you listening? You're Sona Sitri, someone who doesn't hesitate to do the things you plan. You see thousands of ways to get ahead. If you ask me for help to be friends and receive Haidu's forgiveness, and you are still unsure of how to do it, then I don't know who you are right now. She said, showing seriousness and strength in her words, waking Sona up. Sona thought about the words he told her and saw that he was right. She has been desperately searching for a way for Issei to forgive her, and now that he seemed to have regained that smile and happiness that he showed her before, thanks to another person, made her not know what to do anymore. Sona. Thank you, Tsubaki. I really needed those words. She said, wiping the tears from her face. This time you won't see me like that again, I assure you. Tsubaki. I'm glad, Kaichu. Then. What will you do? Sona thought about it for a bit and quickly came up with something. Sona. I think I have a way to get close to him. She said, relieving her queen to see that her normal self had returned. As soon as classes ended, most of the students went to their clubs while the rest went home. Normally Issei would have already left, but now he found himself in the student council, surprised by what he had just heard. Issei. Excuse me, Kaichu, could you repeat that? The 4 members of Sona's peerage were present, and all 4 were surprised, as was the brown-haired boy. Sona. I know you're not enrolled in any club, and seeing how you are with your grades and how you keep your class under control, especially those 2 perverts, I would like you to join the student council. She repeated, adding a few things with her typical serious look and with her hands crossed with her elbows on the desk. The brown-haired boy was silent for a few seconds, trying to see if he could join or not. He didn't feel like joining any club, but because of how he is, several girls began to consider him the second prince of Kuo, since the first was someone named Udo Kiba. On top of that, they gave him the title the Cold Prince in honor of his attitude with everyone. Something that for some strange but very strange reason girls love. But if he decided to join, they wouldn't force him to act, train, or create things like he would have to do in other clubs. The student council was where he seemed to fit in very well, and if he did, they would finally stop bothering him every day to join their clubs. Issei. Okay, Kaichu, I'll join. He spoke, bowing a little. Sona. Perfect, then come here tomorrow before classes start so I can tell you what role you'll take. You can go now if you want. She said, receiving a nod from the brunette and watching her leave. Tsubasa. I never thought he would invite him, Kaichu. Yeah. Does that mean he'll add him to his peerage? Sona. No. He won't be part of my peerage. She said, surprising the 3 of them with that. Yeah. But if Kaichu finds out that we are devils, will he recruit him? She asked him, seeing how he denied it. Sona. Listen carefully, Haidu Issei cannot know of the existence of the supernatural in any way. Do you understand? She told them so seriously that it scared the two of them except her queen, who let out a sigh that she was holding. Tsubaki. Are you sure? Sona. That's right, Tsubaki, this is the only way to be close to him, even if it sounds like I'm controlling him, I'm not, I just hope that this way I can get closer to him. Tsubaki. If you are sure about this decision I have no objection, Kaiju. After that they continued with their duties as council members until they had to retire to close the academy. Tsubaki and Sona said goodbye to Yura and Ria as they walked their separate ways. When they arrived at the apartment they used together, the first thing they saw was a brunette with pigtails eating french fries with her pinky and ring finger, while with the rest of her fingers, she turned the pages of the manga on her other hand. When she noticed their presence, she swallowed the chip she had in her mouth and greeted them happily, while Sona covered her face with one hand. Serafall. Su-chan. So. Sona. One-sama. What are you doing here? She asked as she left her backpack on a chair. Serafall. Well, I was in the city for a while, and I wanted to come visit you, but since you weren't there, I waited for you. She said, sticking out the tip of her tongue at the end. Sona. And your job as a Mau? She asked him with a twitch in her right eye. Serafall. It's very boring, and those old men were trying to convince me to get a partner and have a child. Of course they themselves gave me names of high-class devils, but they are just arrogant and proud people who would be with me just because of my title. She explained to them, annoyed, having the upper half of her body lying on the table. Sona. If you don't want to be bothered anymore, get one. She told him with a sigh. Serafall. Yes. About that. She thought, sweating a little as she remembered that the person she will go out with next Saturday will be the boy her sister loves and who was her childhood friend. I still haven't found the right person, that's all. Tsubaki. Serafall Sama, if you wish to stay, how about I cook? Sona. Tsubaki, you don't have to do it since One-sama is already leaving. She said, watching her sister complain when she heard how they threw her out. Serafall. So you are cruel, I use my free time to see you and you just throw HMPH at me, Ice-kun is not. She said, mumbling, and then quickly covered her mouth for fear that Sona had heard her. And luckily she went to say something to Tsubaki, who was already taking out the ingredients for dinner. Serafall. It was so close. Did I call him Ice-kun? Oh by Lucifer, what's wrong with me? I just met him yesterday, I can't call him so friendly so soon. I know I usually call almost everyone that way, but I can't call him that when we've just talked. She thought, getting tense and nervous. I have to tell Sotan that he asked me out, even though it will hurt her too much I have to do it, I don't want to have secrets that involve her. Serafall was about to go and tell him everything, but something stopped her and made it worse. Tsubaki. How will Haidu find that girl he likes? Sona. Grr, I would like to believe that she doesn't like anyone, but seeing that smile she had all day it was obvious that she fell in love with someone. I will wait for her to name her or for her to look for him at the academy to find out who is the one who won her heart and return that smile. Serafall at this point felt as if her heart was going to stop at any moment. What she feared most was true. Issei fell in love with her. She knew for years that Sona had tried to find Issei's whereabouts but never found him, that she always hated herself since that day for not believing her that he was not the one who tried to poison her father. That day after finding out what happened, he immediately went to his little sister's room, but all he got was her throwing things at him while yelling at him to leave while crying. Remembering how devastated she saw Sona that day made her feel that if she knew who the girl Issei fell in love with was, she would hate her, and she didn't want that. She loved her little sister, and thinking that she could hate her and never talk to her again filled her with fear. In the end, she discarded the idea of telling him that she had a date with the brunette, and since she was no longer in a good mood, she said goodbye to both of them, to the surprise of both of them, who believed that she really would stay for lunch. When he got to his own room he threw himself onto his bed, thinking about what to do with Issei. Serafall. So thanks to me you got your smile back. Even though I'll sound really mean, I have to make it clear that I don't like it. She thought, knowing that by doing so she could lose the person she had been waiting for so long. So the days passed and the long-awaited Saturday arrived for Issei, who was as anxious as a little child. It had only been 3 days since he last saw Serafall, and he already missed her. Right now Issei was arriving at the fountain of a park which was their meeting point. When he arrived he was fascinated to see Serafall. She was wearing a pink blouse with purple details, a black skirt that reached her thighs, black shoes and her typical pigtails, one of which she was caressing while she waited for him. He could see how many men who were walking by just passed by to take a look at him, which made him angry and excited to see their reactions to what they saw. Issei. Hello Serafall. He spoke to her as he arrived in front of her. When he greeted her, the first thing he showed her was a warm smile. Serafall. Hello, Issei-kun. Issei. You know, since we're going out to get to know each other better, you can call me Ice if you want. He told her without noticing how she tensed up. Serafall. It's okay. Ice-kun. Issei. Well then, shall we go? He asked, watching out of the corner of his eye as the men were dying of jealousy when they saw that such beauty awaited him. Issei took her to places like the arcade, the aquarium, a clothing store at a request, and what should not be missing, he took her to a store in a neighborhood she would never have gone to, which made her wonder why he took her there. Maybe, just maybe, he wasn't as nice as he seemed, and behind the door in front of her, they would try to do bad things to her. But seeing the brown-haired boy smile and how he seemed to laugh from looking around so many times, he calmed down a little. Issei. Don't be scared, you like this? He said, opening the door, making the brunette's eyes shine with joy. Just behind the door there were various things about mangas, figures and various cosplay. Issei led her through the store and then stopped in front of a shelf that made Serafall's eyes almost pop out and then look at him. Right in front of her was an ultra-special limited edition figure of magical girl protagonist Milky Spiral 7. It was a figure that was supposed to come out in a fixed quantity of 50 units, and that was supposed to have all been bought up already, but right in front of her was one that was so special because it had a special outfit that they show in the series. As soon as she found out that these figures were going to be released, she searched all over the world for one, but by the time she knew where one was, it had already been purchased. Serafall. Ice-kun. This is. She stuttered, taking the figure with ultra care in her hands. Issei. Since I saw that the manga you bought earlier was your favorite series, I remembered this store that I found by chance before. I came trying to find something you like and found this. Is it that special? Serafall. Why? You don't know? She asked him, surprised that he had shown her that figure when she didn't know how special it was. Issei. No, I don't know, I just saw that it was your favorite series, and that's why I decided to bring you. Immediately after, the brown-haired man felt the brunette's embrace, but not before leaving the figure where it was so as not to break it. Serafall. Thank you, Ice-kun, you made me the happiest woman in the world. She told him with a radiant smile that enchanted him. And now, remembering the last time, I wouldn't let this opportunity pass me by. Just when Serafall was about to let go, she felt the brunette pull her closer to him by the arms that surrounded her. She blushed too much at being in that situation, but for some reason she couldn't exert any strength to break free. After a few seconds she realized that she was liking the feeling of being hugged by him and smelling his body odor. Without realizing it, she hugged him again and buried her face in his chest with her eyes closed, showing a smile. Seeing how she hugged him back and seemed to enjoy it, he felt quite happy, believing that he managed to skip steps in their relationship. Issei. Oh look, the figure is no longer there. He said, causing Serafall's head to turn terrifyingly quickly to see the figure right where she was. She saw Issei again with swollen cheeks and tears in her eyes because he tricked her so well and because she saw how he was holding back his laughter. Serafall. Bad Ice-kun. Issei. Sorry, I just couldn't help but do it. You know you look damn beautiful doing that. He said, touching one of her cheeks with his hand, blushing her in the process. Serafall. Fool. She said and rested her head on his chest again. Of course the brown-haired boy never let go of her. After separating, they bought that figure that would now be a national treasure for the brunette. The sun was beginning to set, so Serafall said she had to leave now. Serafall. I really had a great time with you, Ice-kun. She said, hugging the bag containing the box where the figure was. I will never stop thanking you for this gift. Issei. You don't have to do that, as long as I know that you didn't mind spending your day with me, I'm happy, and I'm even happier seeing you smile like that. He told her, causing her to cover her face with the bag. Serafall. Hey. I'm leaving. She said out loud and ran past the brown-haired boy. When he was about to turn around to see her leave, he felt a weight on his shoulder out of nowhere, and something was attracting him. Then he felt a warm sensation on his cheek. When he saw the reason, he blushed a little, knowing that what just happened was a kiss from Serafall, who had totally red cheeks. Serafall. Boo. Good night, talk to you later. She said, and this time she turned around and left. Issei kept looking where she went, even though he no longer saw her with her hand where she gave him a kiss. Issei. Good night to you too, Sera-chan. But that said, he headed towards his house, and when he arrived he ate something and went to sleep afterwards, but because of what had just happened several minutes ago he couldn't fall asleep, so he began to remember every expression that she showed him. Issei. Damn, I really fell in love. He said to the air with a smile, looking at the ceiling. In Serafall's room, she was in the same condition as Issei. She was staring at the ceiling with a blush on her face, remembering what she did right at the end. She doesn't know why she did it, but something prompted her to do it, and to make matters worse, she liked doing it. Thinking about it, she covered her face with her hands and started tossing and turning around in her bed in embarrassment. Serafall. I can't believe that I fell in love with Ice-kun. She said to the air, remembering how he treated her the whole day they were together, and really by his side she felt very good. Ah, it can't be, I fell in love with Ice-kun. Does that mean that? Is it a reciprocated love? She asked herself, causing her blush to increase and continue to roll around in bed. On that day, the Devil Queen Leviathan, Serafall Sitri, felt love for the first time and with the best person she could have wished for. When Monday came, everyone was already considering the option that Issei got a girlfriend, which bothered some guys. The brunette was walking through the halls of the academy heading to his classroom, but remembered that he had to go to the student council. Thinking that he was now a member of the council saddened him, because now he wouldn't have as much free time as before to do whatever he wanted. Issei. I hope the feeling I have towards Kaichu decreases. It's annoying to feel hatred towards her for some reason. He said, feeling that same thing when he talked about her. Seriously, why do I feel hatred towards her when we don't know each other? Issei, as he didn't know if he should go with his bag or not, took it with him. When he was in front of the council door, he limited himself to knocking on it, waiting for the brunette's pass, and upon receiving it he entered. When he walked in and saw the brunette at her desk, he felt the need to make her pay, but what he didn't understand was, pay for what? Sona. Good morning Haidu, since you've arrived I'll tell you your duties as a member of the student council. She spoke to him while adjusting her glasses. You'll have to help with the paperwork sometimes like Kusaka and Tsubasa do. She said, pointing with her hand towards the two of them, who were filing some sheets that when the brown-haired boy saw them they waved at him. But that's something all the members will do. Your main role will be to make sure that everyone in the academy doesn't do anything wrong, and therefore you will also check from time to time if the clubs really do what they should do. Issei. Will I do all that alone? He asked, begging that someone would go with him. Sona. For the moment yes, when someone else joins you they will keep you company, but Haidu you don't have to go to all the clubs in one day, you can take several by surprise and continue with the remaining ones another day. She told him, making him relax because he didn't have to supervise all the clubs in the same day. Issei. Then I'll check some during the break, now I'll go to Kaichu classes. He said goodbye, leaving there quickly. The moment Issei left, Sona's head fell onto the desk with a thud. Tsubaki. Kaichu. Sona. It's nothing, it's just. It's hard to pretend not to know him and treat him so seriously. She told them, raising her head and rubbing her forehead. You can go to class now, I'll go to the next class. She told them, receiving an agreement from the three of them. When the break came Issei headed towards one of the clubs which was a music club. By throwing open the door he startled the four members inside who were eating candy and playing around. He was going to tell them why they weren't doing something about the club, but thought it might be a good idea to trick them first. Boy 1. What do you want? Issei. I'd like to join. The four of them were surprised because they knew who the brown-haired boy in front of them was, and they knew that he always rejected all the invitations they gave him, but now he himself wanted to join, but if he did it because he wanted to make music they were somewhat screwed. Boy 1. Do you really want to join? Issei. That's right, but why are you eating instead of writing, listening or practicing music? He asked them, making them more nervous. Did you just go to the club to laze around? Boy 2. Sheesh, come in, don't tell anyone about this, we don't know anything about music, and we only use the club to have fun and buy things with the funds they give us. Wouldn't you like to have some fun instead of getting bored with classes? He asked her, trying to keep her from reporting them to Sona. Issei. I don't think so. Since I'm part of the student council. He told them with a serious look, terrifying the four of them with his words. Oh yeah, I joined the council, now come with me to talk to Kaichu. He told them, opening the door, waiting for them to leave. Seeing no way out, the four of them left with their heads down. When they arrived at the student council, the brunette told Sona everything, which made her extremely upset, causing the four of them to receive cleaning punishments for using school funds to buy scrap metal. The four of them cried when they learned that they would have to stay after school to clean some classrooms for several days, and also the bathrooms. Sona. You can go now. She told them with a stern look that made them leave in a second. Haidu, good job discovering them. She said, showing him a slight smile. At that moment a girl with a bigger smile overlapped Sona before Issei's eyes. He shook his head twice with his eyes closed, and when he opened them, he saw that the little girl seemed confused by his action. Issei. It's nothing Kaichu, it's my duty as a member of the council after all. He told her without looking at her, with a feeling of oppression in his chest. If you don't need me for something, I'll leave. He told her, quickly leaving from there. When he left he stayed leaning against the wall, feeling that the sensation he had when he saw the brunette smile did not disappear. It was the feeling that you forget something, but your body remembers it very well. Issei. She said she never met me then. Is it just my imagination? No. When I first saw her she looked familiar, and now seeing that smile I saw a girl. Did I know Kaichu in my childhood? If so, why did she tell me she doesn't know me? He wondered, causing a huge headache. This damn pain. just shows that I tried to remember something. I guess I'll have to wait for my memory to come back somehow. I hope I'm wrong about Kaichu. He told himself, feeling that if he were to remember and she was in his past, something bad could happen. The days continued to pass after that incident which Sona had no idea about. Issei met up with Serafall again, but they could only talk in a cafe for a few minutes since the brunette had things to do. Of course Issei was happy that she took that little time to be with him, that way he could get to know her better and go deeper into how much she liked that anime, but he realized that it wasn't just that one, it was the magical girl genre itself that fascinated her, which made her seem even more beautiful and tender because of how childish she looked. At that time the brown-haired boy was beginning to feel annoyed when he felt the gaze of the redhead he collided with before, but he didn't know what she wanted because she didn't look at him as if she liked him, it was as if she saw something in him. It was also at that time that the news that Issei was part of the student council became public, which scared several people who tried to fight him out of jealousy to get the girl's attention, but they always lost, and now that the rumor spread that he checked the clubs on different days, it made them worry since several did nothing in their clubs. With Issei on the council, 4 clubs were closed down due to wasting money on things that were of no use to the clubs. That was the brown-haired boy's life throughout his first year. When the holidays came, he wanted to go out with Serafall again since he hadn't seen her for a few weeks, but he was never able to meet up with her because she was busy with things she didn't want to tell him. That made him suspect if she was with another man or if she was really that busy even on vacation, but knowing the brunette's attitude only made him hit himself for thinking that she would be capable of cheating on him with another. Issei began to think about everything that happened that year and realized that he has many memories of that year, but even if he tried he couldn't remember anything from his past. Even that feeling against Sona was still there, but it wasn't as strong, it was as if it were that way so it wouldn't bother him. As a final result, Issei spent the holiday completely alone and was luckily able to stay alive all that time because of a large unknown amount he had in the bank ever since he remembered anything. The second year had begun to Issei's relief because he was very bored at home, and it is no wonder he felt that way living alone in a family home. Issei. Excuse me, Kaichu. He announced upon entering the student council, already knowing that the brunette would be there signing something. Sona. Hello Haidu, how was your vacation? Issei. Too boring, I spent it alone because I didn't have anyone to go out with. He said, referring especially to his cute Sarah. Sona. That's so bad to hear. What are you doing here so early? There's still a little over half an hour until the opening ceremony. Issei. Like I said, I was bored. He told her, simply causing her to let out a small laugh. Sona. Then Haidu, if you don't want to be bored, come and help me sign these papers. She said, showing him a small stack of sheets on Tsubaki's desk. Issei. Where does he get so many papers to sign? They never end, he spent the entire previous year signing. He thought with a drop of sweat running down his temple. And when he sat down he remembered something, making him look at the brunette who looked at him when she noticed his gaze. Sona. What's wrong? Issei. Kaichu, I've been a member of the council for a year, but you still call me Haidu, even when you call Kusaka-san and Tsubasa-san by their names. He told him, making him start to tense up when he noticed where he was going. That's why I'd like you to call me Issei if it's not bothering me, it makes me feel weird that I'm the only one you address by my last name. He told him, looking at the papers immediately. The first day of school. It was the first day and Sona felt like it was the best day of her life since the brown-haired boy finally asked her to call him by his name, although not for the reason she wanted, but something is something. Sona. Then. I'll call you Issei from now on. She said, holding back the urge to smile hugely and jump for joy. She was so happy that she could even fulfill her sister's whim of cosplaying with her and she wouldn't complain about anything. With his mood in high spirits, he read and signed the sheet so quickly that it seemed as if he hadn't read them at all. After several minutes the other girls arrived and, seeing Sona happy with her barely perceptible smile, they deduced that something happened when she was alone with the brown-haired boy. Tsubaki informed the two that the ceremony would start soon, so Sona would have to speak in front of everyone again, which was nothing to her. Sona. Very well, the ceremony will start soon, get up Issei. She said to the brunette who acted a bit lazy for not wanting to get up from the chair which was very comfortable. The girls were surprised by how he called him, and now they completely understood why their king seemed so happy. He finally managed to take a step in his relationship with the brown-haired boy, and if this was how the year started, it meant that better things would happen later. Of course, that's what they thought when they had no idea that Issei's memories would soon return. The first days of the start of school were like any other day, except for those who suffered Issei's surprise inspections. And to make matters worse, everyone saw him happy, no one knew why he was so happy, they could guess the reason, but they would never know that it was because finally after so much time he met Serafall again. As soon as he met Serafall again, the brunette had to restrain himself from hugging her with all his might and maybe, just maybe, kissing her too. But he couldn't do that, not yet. If he does, it would be when he asks her to be his girlfriend, which he was already planning on how to ask her and where to take her before doing it. When he was walking across a rather large bridge after classes ended thanks to Sona letting him leave early, he came across a girl his age. She had long, straight black hair and breasts that seemed to be somewhat large due to her school clothes, but not too much. That girl, seeing how he had stopped, approached him with a shy attitude while playing with her fingers. "Say. Excuse me. Your name is Issei, right?" She asked him, looking into his eyes for a second before looking away with her face red. "Issei. Yes, that's my name. What do you need?" "I'm Amano Yuma and I've been watching you as you crossed this bridge and I want to tell you that I like you. Please go out with me," she said out loud with her eyes closed and her cheeks red. The brunette looked around in case there was someone else, because if there was, they would have clearly heard the girl's confession, and luckily there was no one. Issei looked at her again and was saddened to have to reject her. At first glance it was clear that she really seemed to like him, but he also had a feeling that he should reject her without hesitation and not trust her words. "Issei. I'm sorry, but I can't accept your feelings," he said, tilting his head slightly. "I already love someone, so I'm sorry." "Yuma. No. Don't worry. I can't do anything if it's like that. Sorry for taking your time," he said quickly to leave from there with tears in his eyes. That feeling the brown-haired boy had about not believing her persisted, and seeing those tears only made it stronger. That is something he did not understand, because he had so many feelings that he did not understand why they arose. After that encounter, the brown-haired boy continued on his way home, without realizing that an albino girl had been watching him the entire way home that day. Upon seeing the brunette, he retreated to Kuo Academy, more specifically to its old building. Upon entering his destination, he was met by two three-person armchairs with a small circular table in the middle, a desk, and several quality decorations. At that, a door to his right opens and out comes a Redeed, who was the one he was looking for, along with a brunette with a ponytail that reached her knees and with enormous breasts and a big butt. "Rias. Kaneko, you're here. Any news?" she asked the albino who, by the looks of it, was easily first. Kaneko was a first-year, somewhat short white hair with a black cat face decoration. She was cute, and unlike the two women in front of her, was that she was a little flat. "Kaneko." He encountered a fall on his way home. She told him with her voice and face almost emotionless. "Rias. A fall. That means my suspicions about her having a sacred gear were true," she commented while taking a cup of tea that the brunette served her. "It's delicious as always, Akeno." "Akeno. What is Butchu going to do?" "Rias. I already have an idea on what to do." "What exactly happened, Kaneko?" "Kaneko." The fall was confessed to him, and he rejected her, she said directly, making it clear that she wanted to pretend to be his girlfriend. "Rias. In that case I'll have to wait for the perfect moment," she said in a whisper. 2 weeks passed since Yuma's meeting with Issei. During this time, Rias has kept an eye on him in order to find an opportunity to achieve her goal, which was to turn him into a devil as part of her peerage. He knew that the brunette who confessed to the brown-haired girl was not the only one who fell in the city, but even though they were deserters, he did not attack them. He allowed them to continue with their plan, only because that girl Amano Yuma had appeared 2 other times in front of Issei that made it clear to him that she wanted something from him. Now Issei was walking through the city center on a Saturday, waiting for an hour to pass quickly. And the reason he was waiting for an hour to pass was because in an hour he will finally have a date with the beautiful Serafall, and you could say that it would be their second date, because the previous times they only met for short periods of time, but now he will be able to spend the whole day with her. She was going to wait for Serafall to arrive at her meeting point, which is the same as the first time, at the fountain in a park, and before she arrived a girl with a dress and a hairstyle related to a bat approached her and gave her a paper with a red circle and a symbol. Since she had free time she kept it and started to review the design. He had sat down on a bench near the fountain and started using his cell phone. Then he felt someone stand in front of him and for a second he thought it was Serafall. But when he raised his head he saw that it was Amano Yuma. "Yuma. Hello, Issei," she said with a big smile. "Issei. What do you want?" he asked her, somewhat tired of her insistence. "Yuma. Hey, finding you here was a coincidence, and since we're here, how about we spend this day together?" She spoke, showing a beautiful smile that would enchant anyone but the brown-haired boy in front of her. Using that smile on him won't work at all. He admitted that the girl was pretty and had a nice smile, but he has already seen someone much more beautiful and with a smile 1,000 times more beautiful. "Issei. I'm sorry, but I have an appointment with someone in a while," he told her, rejecting her instantly, something she didn't like at all. In a few seconds where she remained silent, the place took on a purple color, and now that the brunette noticed it, there was no one else but them in the place. "Uma. You know what? I'm tired," she said, changing her sweet tone of voice to a serious and angry one. That change confused the brown-haired boy, since the aura he gave off was no longer the same. The brunette then made an incredible jump of several meters in the air, surprising the brown-haired man so much that he stood up. Uma's clothes disappeared and her body began to grow. She became taller, her breasts increased considerably in size as did her butt, a dominatrix outfit replaced the previous one, and finally 2 black wings appeared on her back that made her eyes widen and gave her the biggest headache she'd ever had in her life. Issei. Wings. Black wings. Ugh, my head. Uma. Are you scared yet? He asked her, falling on the edge of the fountain with an arrogant smile, the complete opposite of before. Issei was on his knees on the ground with his hands holding his head looking at the floor with his eyes wide open at the information and images coming in. Issei. You. Are a fallen angel. He said, slowly standing up. Uma is a fake name. What's the real one? He asked in a serious voice. Rainer. I'm surprised you guessed I'm a fallen angel, and also that I was using a fake name. Since these will be your last moments alive, I'll tell you my name is Rainer, and now I'll take your life. She said, creating a spear of light in her hand. Any last words? She asked him, and when she didn't receive any she smiled hugely, believing he was scared to death. He then threw the spear towards Issei's heart, but a few centimeters from making contact his left arm was holding the spear. Rainer, who had already come down from the edge of the fountain, was terrified and took several steps back, not because of how he stopped her spear, but because she was afraid of seeing what he had on his left arm. Rainer. The Seker, she exclaimed, barely recovering from her shock. Issei stared at the spear which was held by his hand with the boosted gear, then he focused his gaze on the green gem on the back of his hand. Issei. Hello Drake, it's been a long time. He spoke to the gem which shined. Drake. I'm glad to talk to you again, but it's a shame it hasn't been that long. Issei. It's only been a year and a half since I had you block my memories, really short time. He said, agreeing with the dragon residing inside the gem. MMMH. Oh, I almost forgot about you. He said, fixing his sight on Rainer. The moment he spoke, Fall felt as if death was inches away from his neck, so with his wings, he rose into the sky and tried to escape. But suddenly he felt a huge pain in his right wing, and when he looked at it, he realized that the pain was because more than half of his wing was missing. She fell to the ground with a hard thud, quite sore from her wing. Issei. Don't think I'll let you escape after you tried to kill me. He told her, appearing at her side, terrifying her with the speed of moving many meters in seconds. Issei's left arm was surrounded by a red energy. Feeling the strength of that energy, the brunette tried to escape again, but just running would not achieve anything. Issei. Dragon shoot. He said out loud, letting out a torrent of pure energy that completely consumed Rainer and left nothing of her, as well as the part of the forest they were in. Ah, it feels good to use this again after a year and a half. He said, moving his left arm, making the boosted gear disappear. Greg. Do you remember everything you did last year? He asked, causing the back of the brown-haired boy's hand to have a circle of an emerald color that shone. Issei. Yes. I remember it very well. I never thought that as soon as I blocked my memories I would find her. He spoke, frowning and clenching his fists. Greg. What will you do? Issei. Honestly. I don't know. I still have a very clear memory of the moment when she betrayed me and almost got me killed. At first I only thought about killing her once I became strong enough, but now that I've matured I know that if I do that it will bring serious problems and maybe cause my death. He spoke, returning to the bench where he was before, but not before breaking the barrier. When he returned to the park he saw that there were now people, children playing with their parents watching them from afar or close by, and old people enjoying the day. Without knowing it, time passed quickly when he was inside the barrier, and when he came out it was already time for him to meet Serafall. Issei. The brown-haired boy heard a voice that conveyed happiness and a lot of encouragement. When he looked at the person who called him, he blinked a few times when he saw Serafall approaching him with a big smile and clothes that made her look extremely beautiful. With that he remembered what happened with Serafall, and especially the expression she had when she met him, remembering that he knew that she knew at all times who he was. Serafall. How do I look, Issei? She asked him, turning around very happily, but never received a compliment or word from the brunette. Noticing that he was a bit strange, she worried that he was sick or something. Her doubts increased when he grabbed her wrist very tightly, something he never did. The times he touched her hands, he was very kind and gentle, as if he didn't want to hurt her. But now it hurt. He brought her a little closer to him, and for a moment she thought he would kiss her just like that out of nowhere. Issei. Now I understand everything. He said next to her ear, confusing her about what he was talking about. So you finally tried to kill me. Mau Leviathan. Instantly the brunette took 2 steps back, scared when she saw his eyes that did not show the affection and love of before, and knowing that it seemed that his memory had returned. Serafall. I scoo. Issei. Don't call me that, Mau. He told her sternly, making her nervous and worried. You don't need to pretend anymore, your plan to kill me failed, so it's no longer necessary for you to keep pretending. He told her, seeing how she trembled at his words. Serafall. Kill you? No. I wouldn't do that. Issei. You better stop, you can go now if you want. He said, retreating towards his house. Just then the people disappeared and the place took on a dark color, implying that it was another barrier. Issei. Now you're going to do it yourself? He asked, looking at Serafall. Serafall. I never wanted to kill you. She yelled at him, trying to make him understand. Issei. Really? Well, it's very strange that after we barely saw each other a few weeks ago, a girl appears before me, and it turns out to be a fallen one who tried to kill me that by much coincidence decided to appear just today, the day we were going out. Do you want to know another big coincidence? He asked, taking a paper out of his pocket that when he showed it to her, her eyes widened and her fear and worry increased. The other big coincidence is that before I got here, a woman who I think was a relative gave me this. What was the plan? Kill me for the attempted murder of your father, and then have me as a servant in someone's peerage in order to have me under control all the time. He yelled at her, causing Serafall to take a few steps back with her hands on her chest as she felt her heart racing in panic. At this point, Serafall didn't know what to say to make her believe him, because everything she said really seemed to be planned that way. Serafall. Please believe me. I didn't do anything. I would never dare try to kill you after all. She said, not knowing whether to say it or not. Issei. What, you fell in love with me? Please stop pretending, Mau Leviathan. He said, leaving the brunette in stone. Serafall couldn't even move when she heard him say that. He didn't even call her by her name anymore, now he only called her by her title. The only one she ever loved and who loved her until a few moments ago, now seemed to hate her because of some unfortunate events. All she could do was let the tears fall uncontrollably from her eyes. Issei. Go on, go and tell your family where I am, even if they try to kill me again. I never thought I would be betrayed by my childhood friend, and I also didn't think I would be manipulated and deceived by the girl I loved. Goodbye, Mau. He said, making the brunette's heart break when she saw that she lost him completely. Serafall. Please. Believe me. I do love you, I didn't cheat on you or manipulate you. Please. Believe me. She said as best she could without stopping crying as she watched a brown-haired boy walk away without even stopping or turning to look at her one last time. Serafall fell to the ground and continued crying while the brown-haired boy continued walking, ready to get out of there once and for all. Greg. Issei. Spoke to him mentally. Issei. What's wrong? Greg. Will you do the same? She asked him, leaving him confused for not understanding. Will you do the same thing to her as what they did to you? She asked him, making him stop. The Sitri didn't believe you and you always hated her because she didn't trust you even though you were friends, and now you will do exactly the same as her. Tell me, Issei, if you do this, will you be sure that you won't hate yourself in the future for not believing her? She asked him, making him realize what he was doing. He was angry, and seeing the things that happened that day made him think the worst, and luckily Drake made him see reason and realize that he almost committed what he hated most. Blinded by anger and not believing what he was told. Looking back, he saw Serafall crying, trying to stop the tears with her hands, but it didn't work at all. He felt the worst, thinking that she was telling the truth, but because he believed that she would only tell him lies, he left her in such a state. He approached her slowly and could hear some small words that she repeated over and over again. Serafall. Please. Don't leave me. Since her eyes were closed, she didn't see the brunette approach her. She knew at the moment a pair of arms surrounded her and pulled her towards the fountain. When she saw who it was, she returned the hug and began to cry on his shoulder, not wanting to let him go. Serafall. Please don't leave me. Please. Issei. I won't leave, Sarah-chan, you can rest easy. He said, caressing her head as he felt her hug him tighter. Serafall felt too happy to hear him call her that way again. Being called by her title before by the man she loved was the worst thing that could happen, but now hearing him call her Sarah-chan made all that feeling disappear, being replaced by one of extreme happiness. Issei. What do you think if we go to my house to talk about what happened to me today? He asked her, seeing how she shook her head without separating from the hug. Serafall. I want to have that date with you. She told him, making him open his eyes at a request. Issei. But it would be weird if we left as if nothing had happened. He said, gaining several points in his favor. Serafall. I'm not interested, I want to have a date with you today. I've been waiting for this day for a long time, and even if you hate me, we'll still have it. She told him, looking at him in such a tender way that he loved it. Issei. Do you know why I can't hate you now? He asked her, receiving a no with her head. Why I still love you? He told her, and before she could say anything he joined his lips with hers. Serafall felt tears fall from her eyes again, but they were from pure joy as she heard the man she loved tell her that he loved her and kissed her. She immediately returned the kiss and wrapped her arms around the brunette's neck in order to deepen the kiss and enjoy it better. Although for a moment that day turned dark for Serafall, it instantly became the brightest of all, and there were still much better days, and she knew that. After regaining his memories after nearly being killed, he almost left the woman who loved him and who he still wanted due to a misunderstanding. Thanks to Drake, he thought carefully about what he was doing and stayed with her, making it so that instead of going to her house to talk about what happened, they had the date they were going to have that day, and that she had been waiting for with such longing. Serafall. Ice, come, look at those cute stuffed animals. She said, looking at some stuffed animals of a creature that accompanies the girl from her anime. Issei. Are all magical girls accompanied by something like this? He asked, since he noticed that in all the stories of magical girls, they always had a creature with them that was what gave them their power or that helped them. At Serafall's request, they began their date, and on the way to the store they were in now, the brunette never let go of the brown-haired boy's arm, much to his enjoyment as he was able to have his arm between her large breasts. Issei. Do you want to have one? He asked her, taking one of those stuffed animals, making the brunette's eyes shine. I'll take that as a yes. Issei bought her the plushie along with something else he had seen before without Serafall noticing. When they left the place, all the men who passed by, whether they were alone or with company, turned to look at Serafall because of how beautiful she was and the big smile she had while hugging the stuffed animal. Leaving aside the fact that they also looked at her for her big breasts. Issei. Yeah. I guess no problem. He thought, irritated as he saw how everyone was staring at the brunette. In an instant, all the men felt disappointed and angry as Issei hugged Serafall by the waist and gave her a kiss on the lips, causing her to be surprised but reciprocate without hesitation. When they separated, she rested her head on the brunette's torso with her face flushed as she noticed several glances at them. Issei. What's wrong? Are you embarrassed? He said with a smile, making him understand that that was what he wanted from the beginning. Serafall. You did it on purpose. She said, puffing out a cheek, making the brunette caress it and give it another kiss. At this point some men looked at Issei with pride and others looked at him with hatred and jealousy. Issei. How about we continue so we can enjoy this date more? He asked in her ear and then showed her an innocent smile. Serafall. Ice-kun, you are very bad. She told him, hugging his left arm, making him feel again how his arm sank between the softness of her breasts. After that intimate moment in front of several people, they continued with their date where the brown-haired man gave all his attention to the brunette so that she would have a great time. When the sun had already set, giving way to the night stars flooding the sky in its place next to the moon, instead of ending the date they went to Issei's house. Issei. Serafall. I'm really sorry for what I did today. He told her regretfully when they were arriving at his house. Serafall. I can't say it didn't hurt me when you called me by my title and when it seemed like you would leave me. She told him, making him feel bad. But all that changed when you came back and told me you wouldn't leave me. She said before joining her lips with his. Issei. Knowing that you really love me, I can only tell you one thing, but it's more than enough. I love you. He said and joined his lips with hers again. And instantly he felt a somewhat salty taste while he was kissing her, so when he opened his eyes a little he saw that she was shedding a few tears while her eyes were closed. He moved away from her a little and gently passed his hand over his eyes in order to dry those tears, but in doing so he made them come out with more force, something he didn't understand why, making him nervous. Issei. Why are you crying, Serafall? He asked, a little alarmed and worried. Serafall. It's just that. I really found someone who loves me for who I am and not for my title. She spoke with a big smile and tears in her eyes. The next thing Issei did was not kiss her, he just hugged her lovingly and protectively, making her happier, making the brown-haired boy feel like the brunette was hugging him too. Issei. We better go in. He said when he was already a few meters from his house. Serafall nodded and walked next to him, taking his hand in hers and interlacing their fingers. Issei. Drake, thank you for making me react earlier. If I had lost Serafall because of my misunderstanding, I would hate myself for all eternity. He mentally said to the dragon, who smiled a little and closed his eyes to sleep. Already inside Issei's house, Serafall began to inspect the house, and although it could not be compared to her house, which was a castle, Issei's house was quite nice and spacious for a person to live there. Serafall. Do you live alone? Issei. Yes, my parents died before I met your sister. He told her, making her sad when she noticed that he didn't call her by her name. Serafall. Issei. About Sona. Issei. I know she's very sorry for what she did. I remember some of her expressions that seemed strange to me before, but now that I remember everything I know it was because she regretted what she did. He told her, making the brunette have hope. But if she wants me to forgive her for almost getting me killed, she will have to sincerely ask for my forgiveness. He told her, making her nervous. Serafall. But Ice. She was going to try to get him to change his mind, but before continuing he raised his hand a little. Issei. Sarah-chan, even though I love you, you must understand that she didn't believe me and almost got me killed. If it weren't for the fact that I got a smoke bomb just before the incident, I would have died. He told her with a serious expression. Serafall couldn't say anything since he was right. She had heard the report that if he hadn't had that smoke bomb he would have been killed. To think that the man she fell in love with, who made her happier in one day than in her entire long life, made her shudder and tense. Issei. Don't worry, that won't happen again, I assure you. He said, caressing her back because she suddenly hugged him, burying her face in his chest. Serafall. Promise me? She asked him, still without raising her head. Issei. With my life. He said, raising his head and giving him a kiss full of love. Now how about I tell you what happened before you arrive with details? He asked, walking towards the sofa he had in the living room. Serafall sat next to him but still close to him as she rested her head on his shoulder. Issei. Do you know that with everything you do you make me want to pamper you all the time? He asked her, hugging her waist so he could lie down with her on top of him. Serafall. You're very warm. She told him, feeling comfort and warmth being on top of his body. Please tell us what happened, I will stay here. She said, managing to get a laugh from the brown-haired boy. Issei. Well, this happened. The first thing he told her was about his encounter with Rainer, pretending to be a normal girl named Amano Yuma. Hearing how the girl had confessed to him with a shy and adorable attitude bothered her, but she calmed down and became happy when she heard him tell her that he already had someone he liked. Issei. After that, she would sometimes appear by chance where I was, and when she appeared she would continue asking me to go out with her, but the answer was always the same. I even restrained myself from yelling at her in front of everyone around to stop bothering me. He said, remembering how he almost did that, but he stopped himself. And when I went to the park to wait for you, she appeared again by chance and invited me to go out in the city, but when I rejected her again was when she apparently got tired and showed her true appearance. Serafall. And what happened to her? Issei. Well. When she couldn't kill me by throwing a spear of light at me she decided to escape, but I ended up killing her before she got too far away. He said, cutting things too short. Serafall. What? How did she throw a spear of light at you and you didn't die? And how did you kill her when she was a fallen angel and you were a human? Unless. She asked, starting to come to a conclusion. Issei. Well, let's say I stopped the spear with this. After finishing the sentence he raised his left arm a little, and when he made the boosted gear appear, Serafall's eyes opened as wide as they could, and she began to stutter incoherently until she looked him straight in the eyes and said in a very loud voice. Serafall. You are the Securite. Issei. Sarah, please don't scream being so close to my face. He said, covering his ears although he had already received the scream. Serafall. When were you going to tell me? Issei. Now. He answered simply. I didn't want to ruin the date so I decided to tell you later and now is later. He said, making her let out a sigh. Serafall. When did you awaken your sacred gear? She asked with interest while touching the boosted gear. Issei. Yes. About that. He said, looking away, causing the haired girl to narrow her eyes. Let's say that. I woke him up thanks to the enormous hatred and the desire to kill your sister. He told her, feeling how her body tensed up and trembled a little. Serafall. Still. She said in a low voice but being heard by the brown-haired boy. Do you still feel that? She asked, afraid that he would answer with a yes. Issei. If I told you yes, who would you be with? With me or with your sister? He asked her, making her hide her face in his chest. Serafall. Please don't make me choose. Issei. What doesn't make you choose why you would stay by your sister's side? He asked without receiving an answer, but in exchange he felt his chest begin to feel wet. Serafall. Please don't make me choose. Please. She repeated, feeling a lot of pain at already having an answer. Issei. Sorry about that, Sarah, I just wanted to know if you would abandon your sister to stay with me. He spoke to her, hugging her and bringing her face close to his. From the beginning I knew you would choose her, and if you didn't you wouldn't be you. That's what I adore about you. Even if you love me so much you would still choose to support your sister, your family, there's nothing wrong with that. He told her, caressing one of her cheeks and starting to give her kisses on her face. Serafall. Aren't you upset that I didn't choose you? She asked, somewhat surprised. Issei. No, Sarah, on the contrary, I'm happy that you choose your family over love, after all. If you lose your family you can't replace it with anyone. He told her with a sad and melancholic expression. Serafall. But there is a way to get some of that back. She said, gaining his attention. And that is by starting a family. She said, tilting her head with a smile. At her response, Issei widened his eyes and approached her, managing to have her lips. It was already a fact, he wanted to start a family with her, and he would achieve it one way or another. He didn't mind waiting a few years to finish his studies, so as to be worthy of being Serafall's husband and the father of her children. It was Monday morning, the school week was starting again, much to the dismay of many, and to the annoyance of a certain brown-haired man that was entering through the entrance to the property. Issei. Fuck classes, fuck everyone. If I didn't have to come right now I would be with Serafall. He said, grumbling in a low voice. It's amazing that you love her so much despite what you did to her on Saturday. At the words of his partner who resides on his left arm, he stopped his steps and massaged the area between his eyebrows. Very sorry about that. Issei. Please don't remind me. I do. Hearing someone call his name he turned his head back, only to find himself staring at a recent student council member. Issei. Good morning Hanakai-san. Momo Hanakai joined the student council almost a week ago, along with someone from her same class named Haruko Nomura. Both requested to join at the same time after Sona had spoken to a blonde that they seemed to know, and who was her classmate. Of course, after the brunette talked to the two for a long time, they joined. There is also a new member who joined days before, her name is Tomo Meguri, all three are second years like the brown-haired boy. Momo has white hair that reaches the middle of her back, she has big breasts and is cute. About Haruko you could say she is a loli, she has brown hair, and unlike Momo, she wears two pigtails. She wears dark and light green stockings in parts that reach her thighs, and although it is not noticeable through her clothes, she has some breasts. Finally, Tomo is a cheerful girl like Haruko, her hair is reddish-brown with two small pigtails, and she also has big breasts like the white-haired girl. Momo. What are you doing standing here? She asks him because he was standing in the same place for almost 10 seconds when he still had to enter the building. Issei. I was just remembering something. Momo. In that case please keep walking, you're blocking the way for others. Issei. But it's impossible to block someone's path in this part. He thought with a nervous smile. In that case, let's go to the council together. What do you think? He asked with a smile. Momo accepted without being able to refuse since she was heading there anyway. Upon arriving at the council room, the two greeted those who were already there, the only one who was not there being Tomo. Momo. Good morning Kaichu. She greeted him bowing a little. Issei. Good morning. Kaichu. He greeted her trying to seem normal, but he still held a grudge against her to speak to her nicely. Sona. Good morning, both of you. She returned the greeting, looking at them for a moment before returning to the papers she had in her hands. Issei. As usual, he has too many papers so early. Sona. I'm used to it now, so I don't get tired easily. She replied simply. Since you're here, I'd like to see these papers and when you've finished analyzing them, come back and tell me what you think. She told them, taking 3 papers out of a drawer for each of them. Sona. You can go to class, it will start soon, and I don't want to hear about you being reprimanded for being late. She said, causing the brunette and the girls to say goodbye. The only ones who stayed were Sona and her queen Tsubaki. Once the others left, Sona left the sheets on the table and stared at the door. Tsubaki. Kaichu, is something wrong? Sona. It's nothing, it's just that I'm wondering who is the one who brought Issei's happiness back again. She said with a certain hostile tone, causing her friend to laugh softly. Tsubaki. I never thought I'd see her like this. Sona. How? She asked with a raised eyebrow. Tsubaki. I don't know, maybe jealous. He said, showing her a smile making Sona's face blush. Sona. I'm not jealous. She told him, looking away with her cheeks red. Don't you have classes to go to? She asked him, trying to get him to forget the subject. Tsubaki. It's true, I'm leaving Kaichu. He said, bowing slightly and proceeding to leave the room. As he left, Sona dropped her head onto the desk as the red color on her face spread further. Sona. Of course I'm jealous. I want to be the one who causes that smile and happiness but it's not me. How will I know who it is? I can't send one of the girls to watch him just for something selfish. She spoke without worrying that someone would hear her since she was alone. Even though this will bother me, I will have to do it, but I can't send any of the girls since they have things to do, so who can I ask? She asked herself, sitting up straight with her eyes closed. Ugh, if I ask for help maybe I'll make him use that. It doesn't matter, I'll ask One-sama if she can investigate who he meets with. I will never forgive myself for doing this. She said, massaging the space between her eyebrows. Immediately after, a magic circle appeared on her right ear while she had her eyes closed. Seconds later, she could hear a rather cheerful voice coming from that circle. "I'm so glad you called your dear Wani-chan," said the overly cheerful voice. "Sona. Wani-sama, please calm down," she asked her, even though just by listening to her voice, she felt a wave of joy that overwhelmed her too much. "Serafall. Tell me, do you just want to talk to me or do you want help with something?" She sounded very excited when she received a call from her beloved sister. "Sona. I would like you to help me with something," she said, determined and firm. "Serafall. I'll do anything for you. I'd even fight Sirs-chan for you," she said, causing Sona to sweat. "Sona. I know my request will sound strange, I would like to ask you to investigate someone." "Serafall. You want me to investigate someone? It must be someone dangerous for you to ask me to do it." "Sona. It's not really dangerous and you know it." On Serafall's side, hearing her little sister say that she wants her to investigate someone that they both know, made her feel nervous thinking about who she wanted to investigate. "Serafall. And who do you want me to investigate and about what?" "Sona. I would like you to investigate who Issei is meeting with," she told him, making him no longer happy at all, but instead having a feeling of fear and nervousness. Serafall. "Oh no, I knew she could find out, but at this rate she'll know that I'm dating Ice-kun soon. What do I do?" she thought, walking back and forth in her office without knowing what to answer Sona. "Sona. Wani-sama, are you still there?" That question brought him back to reality and he realized he was still on the call. "Serafall. WH. You want me to investigate Issei? And what do you mean you want me to know who he's meeting with?" she asked him, sounding normal. "Sona. W. Well. I know it's weird for me to say this but I want to know if he's been meeting with, she said, stuttering, but the direction she was going only made Serafall's blood freeze. "With a girl." "Serafall. What?" she said in a low voice, seeing how there was almost no way out. "Do you think that Issei has a girlfriend?" "Sona. I don't know if she's a girlfriend, but I know she's been seeing someone since last year. She's regained her smile and joy from when she was in Sitri Castle," she said, causing her sister's body to tense. "Serafall. Do you really want to get involved in his life? What if it turns out he got a girlfriend?" "Sona. Even if it is like that, I will try to be with him even if I end up being a concubine," she said, greatly surprising Serafall. "Serafall. A concubine? Would you go that far even though I might not pay much attention to you if you end up as a concubine?" she asked, raising her voice a little. "Sona. I don't care," she said, raising her voice. "As long as I can be with him, I don't care if I'm second or third in his heart. I at least want to have a place in his heart. If that happens, I don't care about anything else." Serafall was quite surprised by her sister's thought. She knew that she regretted and hated herself for what she did to him and that she loved him, but she never thought that she would love him so much as to be satisfied with just having a small place in the brown-haired boy's heart. Thinking about how she is the brunette's girlfriend secretly from Sona after hearing her say all that made her have a bitter feeling, something she didn't like at all. She would have to tell her soon, or the guilt for stealing her beloved's heart would eat her alive. "Serafall. Okay. I'll try to do it," she said, sounding normal, but she was actually sad. "Sona. Thank you Wani-sama, I owe you one, I won't take up any more of your time, goodbye, thank you very much," she said, and the communication was cut off. "Serafall. What am I supposed to do now?" she asked herself, placing her hands on her chest in the heart area. "What do I do? Issei." After ending the call with her sister Serafall, Sona got up from her seat and left the room to go to class. What she didn't know was that just as she left, a certain brown-haired boy had hidden himself after hearing her on the call with her beloved. Issei. Shit, why did he have to ask Sera-chan for help? He thought nervously as he guessed how the brunette with pigtails must have felt. Ahem. That fake cough made the brown-haired boy shiver. When he turned around, he found himself facing the teacher he was going to have to deal with, and now that he found him there when he should have already been in his classroom, he knew he had earned a punishment. "Teacher. To class. Now," he said seriously, making the brunette answer with a yes and head quickly to the classroom. At that, only one thing went through Issei's head. "Issei. My day started very well," he thought with great sarcasm. When classes ended, obviously the teacher did not forget to give Issei his punishment for being out of the classroom when it was time for class. And the punishment was that he had to clean the living room by himself, even though it wasn't his turn to do it that day. "Issei. I think I'm finally done," he said with a sigh as he wiped the sweat from his forehead. "Are you done yet?" Issei heard a girl's voice at the door, and when he saw who it was he showed a big smile. "Issei. That's right, I'm finally free, Sera-chan," he said to his beloved brunette, who approached him with a beautiful smile. "Wait, I have sweat on my face." He told her, noticing that the brunette was approaching to give him a kiss, but before finishing the word Serafall fell on him with her lips. Serafall. I don't care if you have sweat on your face, I just want to feel your lips. She said, touching their lips and then bringing them back together. Being like that, the brown-haired boy accepted the kiss, and by attracting her more to him, he suddenly caused her to open her mouth a little, which Issei took advantage of and stuck his tongue in the brunette's mouth, who was surprised by that, but since she didn't feel bad at all, she used hers against the brown-haired boy's. Issei. Sarah. Wait. He told her, trying to leave the brunette's lips, but to do so he had to use superhuman strength. It's dangerous to do this here. He told her, finally separating himself from the mouse addicts. Serafall. I know, but I really missed you, and when I saw you I couldn't stop myself from wanting to kiss you. She told him to kiss him again. Issei. If you continue like this I won't hold back. He commented, looking into her eyes. Serafall. Oh no, the beast wants to get out, but who is stopping him from leaving? She said with a look that made the little sanity the brown-haired boy had left disappear. Serafall was lifted by the brunette's arms and hands, and before she could let out a small scream from being grabbed by her butt, she was silenced by Issei's lips as he held her in the air against the wall, without even stopping to kiss Serafall. Is it over yet? Said what seemed to be a girl's voice. I guess so, in any case we'll see now. She replied, even though she was also a girl. Those voices were heard by Serafall through her super-developed devil hearing and by Issei, thanks to certain reasons. Thanks to the fact that Issei heard those voices he was able to regain consciousness, and with that he realized the position in which he was holding the brunette, causing her to blush and separate, but not before leaving her on the ground. Are you done, Hyde? The girl asked as soon as she took a step into the room, but stopped when she saw the unexpected visitor. What? What are you doing here? He asked the brunette without calling her by her title, since it would be strange to call her that in front of the brown-haired girl who supposedly knew nothing about the supernatural world. Issei. Hey. Hello girls. What are you doing here? He asked super nervously, praying that Serafall wouldn't seem weird because of the intense kissing session. Those at the door were exactly Momo Hanakai and Raruko Nomura, who were wide-eyed seeing that the Mao Leviathan was there too, but for some reason she seemed nervous. Momo? Who is she, Haidu? She asked, very confused, not knowing why her president sister was there. Issei. Boo. Well she is. He stuttered since he didn't know what lie to tell. Serafall. Hi, I'm a friend of Haidu-kun's, it's a pleasure to meet you. She greeted them as she always did, with a smile and a very cheerful attitude. But then the three of them heard a loud bang, and when they saw the source they found themselves looking at Issei with his knees and hands on the ground, and of course his face was looking straight at the ground. Baruko. Is something wrong, senpai? She asks, kneeling next to him and putting a hand on his shoulder with a worried face. Issei. I'm fine. Thanks, Nomura-san. He commented, looking at her face. Baruko. Then I'm glad there's nothing wrong with you. She said, giving him a charming and tender smile. But those words, and seeing how the brunette blushed slightly at the brunette's smile, Serafall smiled darkly while releasing a dark aura. Serafall. Yes. It's good that there's nothing wrong with you. Haidu-san. She said, making the brown-haired boy tremble at the lack of affection on his behalf. Baruko. Do you need help? She said, taking the brown-haired boy's hands and trying to help him stand up. Issei. He stuttered, feeling a thirst for blood that was directed at him, and that came from his beloved Serafall, that for some reason neither of the other two felt that thirst for blood. Baruko. Come on senpai, you can't stay on the ground. She told him while still holding his hand. Momo. You can flirt later. She said, suddenly causing the brunette to blush and look down in Serafall to want to take her eyes off the brunette. Haidu Kaichu said that since you stayed cleaning the living room, when you finish you can go home since there isn't too much paperwork to do today. She informed him. At the end she fixed her gaze on the side of the brunette. By the way Haidu. Did you like holding Raruko's hand that much? She asked him since they were still holding hands and neither seemed to release the grip. Serafall. Oh right, I just remembered that I have to see someone. Bye Hanakai-san, bye. Nomura-san, have a nice day. She said goodbye to the two of them, although she did it with the second one out of politeness. And with that he left without saying anything or even looking at the brown-haired boy. Baruko. Boo. Well that was all, have a nice day senpai. She said with her face a little flushed because of what happened a while ago, and so she left first. Momo. Goodbye Haidu. And with that said she left, as did her brunette friend. And that's how Issei was left alone in the living room recalculating what had just happened. After several minutes Issei arrived home, although at first glance it looked as if his soul had just been sucked out. He went up to his room and without changing, he threw himself onto his bed face down with his face to the side. Issei. What happened today? He asked himself without knowing how many times he asked himself the same question. Ah. Where did Serafall go after that? He asked out loud while grabbing the hair on his head. To tell the truth, ever since he had been left alone in the living room, his mind was in total chaos every time he remembered the look Serafall put on for a moment, and that was one of sadness and pain, but the others didn't notice it, since it had been for a very short moment. The day passed like an eternity for Issei since he was only with Serafall for a few minutes, and even when she left, she didn't even say goodbye to him, which depressed him more, and she didn't answer his text messages either. In conclusion, the rest of the day was very lonely for Issei, so he had a light dinner and went to sleep. Oh, what a surprise to see you here. It was the voice of a brunette sitting behind a desk. Issei was in an office where he had only been once, and the one who had spoken was a brunette with 2 pigtails and a green outfit who was sitting behind a desk. Issei. Serafall. 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 Oh, that's right, you used to call me that. She replied, laughing a little. Issei. Is something wrong? You look a little different to me. Serafall. Rather, what's wrong with you? She asked, returning the question. Issei. What do you mean? He asked, feeling that something was wrong. Serafall. It seems that you forgot, why am I not surprised? She wondered, making the brown-haired boy's bad feeling grow stronger. I ask you what is wrong with you that you come here after all. Issei. Wait, Serafall, tell me exactly what you mean please, I don't understand. Serafall. Do I need to tell you again? Very well. She said, standing up and facing Issei with a look lacking in kindness, which seemed very strange to the brown-haired boy. I don't want to see you again, I'm bored of being with you and pretending to love you. She told him, breaking his heart. Issei. Wait. It's a joke, right? He said, blinking several times and taking steps back since he didn't want to believe what he had just heard. Serafall. As you heard, now go or I myself will end your life for trying to kill my father. She said, creating a bit of ice in the air around her. Issei. But. I already told you that I didn't do such a thing. How can you say that? Did you never believe me? Serafall. Of course I didn't believe anything you told me. How could I believe someone like you? She told him while laughing in parts. Issei opened his eyes as wide as he could and tears began to fall. Issei. You. He spoke in a low voice. Will you also abandon me? Will you also betray me? He asked her with his voice trembling while the tears did not stop falling. Serafall. Let me think. She said this with her eyes closed and a hand on her chin, and when she opened her eyes, she gave him the answer seriously and in a dry manner. Yeah. As it was a new day, classes were once again tormenting the lives of most of the teenagers at Kuo Academy. But what tormented Haidu Issei was that he didn't sleep well at all the night before, and if you add to that the sleep he had, his mood was below ground, so without knowing it, everyone moved away or tried not to talk to him or bother him with something, since the expression he currently had was quite scary. What's with that face, Haidu-san? Hearing someone speaking to him, he turned his attention to the front and saw his fellow council member Kusaka Rya with her typical smile. Issei. I'm not in the mood, Kusaka-san. He replied, walking beside her towards her classroom. Rya. What happened? You were normal yesterday. He said, walking beside her. Issei. I slept badly, that's all. He commented while looking at his unlocked cell phone and letting out a sigh. Rya. Haidu. Are you really okay? Wouldn't it be better if you stayed and rested? You look too tired to come to class. She suggested, seeing the dark circles under his eyes. Issei. Don't worry, I'm fine. He replied, and when he noticed that she arrived in front of his classroom, he said goodbye to her and entered. When he reached his seat and sat down, 2 people stood in front of him. Issei. Good morning, Murayama and Caddis. He greeted them, resting his head against the desk. Murayama. You don't look well. Bad night? He asked, watching her nod her head. Caddis. If I were you I would have stayed home and used the excuse of being sick. She said and then received a blow to the head. Murayama. If you did that, I would drag you here myself. Caddis. You're so cruel. In any case, are you sure you're okay? You look pretty tired and upset. Issei. I'm fine, it was just a bad night. He answered them, not wanting the subject to continue. And luckily for them, the teacher with whom they started the classes had arrived, so the two had to go to their places. And while the teacher greeted them and began to teach the class, Issei looked at his cell phone again and let out a sigh of frustration. Issei. He doesn't answer me. He said in a low voice, seeing that the message he sent to a certain person was not answered. Teacher. Haidu Issei, pay attention in class. She said out loud when she saw that he couldn't see in front of him. Issei. Sorry. Classes continued, and now it was time for recess, so although the brunette was still in a bad mood, he addressed the student council. Issei. "Hello everyone," he said as soon as he entered and saw that everyone was there. "Tsubaki. Hello Haidu, you look a little tired. Are you okay?" Issei. "Why does everyone ask me that as soon as they see me?" he asked himself, somewhat tired of that question. "I'm fine Shinra-senpai, thank you for your concern." Sona. "So if you say that and come here I guess you can do your job as a council member, right?" she asked him with her typical expression and tone of voice, although inside she was worried seeing the brunette's tired face and his dark circles. "This is a list of the clubs you should check out," she said, giving him a paper with the names of some clubs. Issei. "I hope none of them are spending the academy budget on nonsense. I hate doing the paperwork for all the bad things they did," he said, seeing that there were several clubs. Sona. "In that case, good luck Issei," she said, happy to call him by his name even though she didn't show it. Issei felt strange being called by his name by Sona, considering that he already remembers everything, but since he was not a child, he could not hate her for long since back then, she was just a child who upon hearing that her father was attacked, believed all that without hesitation. After that, the brown-haired boy left and when he was about to leave he looked at his cell phone again and when he didn't see any change, he let out another sigh. He put it in his pocket and set off towards the clubs he had to check out. That day was terrible for those who were lazy and were caught by Issei, since he was not in a good mood at all. After that, a few more days passed and with each passing day, the brunette's condition became worse until he no longer showed a smile, it was as if he had returned to his old self. And on top of that, his classmates noticed that he looked at his cell phone many times as if he was waiting for something. As the days passed and the brown-haired boy remained the same, the girls from the council asked him what was wrong, but he only responded that it was nothing. Now Issei entered his classroom after having missed the previous day and saw someone new sitting next to his desk. "Issei. Are you new?" he asked a girl who was quite cute and had blonde hair. The girl was a little surprised to hear his voice suddenly as she seemed to be somewhat nervous. "Asia. My name is Asia Argento," she said, stuttering very nervously, seeing the brown-haired boy's expression which scared her a little. "Murayama. Are you scaring Asia already?" he asked, appearing from behind Issei. "Issei. You know I'm not like that," he said while scratching the back of his head. "It's nice to meet you Argento-san." "Asia. The pleasure is also mine and please call me Asia," she said, tilting her head. Issei. "Okay, then I'll call you Asia without honorifics if you don't mind," he told her, to which she shook her head and smiled. After the presentation, classes began, but at the same time Asia sees that the expression of fear that she saw in the brunette before changed to one of sadness when she saw her cell phone. After classes ended and Issei finished his part as a member of the student council, he arrived home quite tired. "Issei. I'm here," he answered, even knowing that no one would answer. "It seems that he will still not appear. Will he return?" he said, walking towards the kitchen and drinking water. Issei did the task given to him that day quickly, since he had nothing else to do. When he finished it he saw that it was already dinner time, but since he didn't feel like cooking, he ate instant noodles which he had bought in case that situation of not wanting to cook arose. Once he finished eating he went to his room and changed his clothes to sleep, but even after several minutes he couldn't fall asleep. At that moment, his cell phone emitted the sound that a message had been received, so the brown-haired boy's eyes opened wide, and almost falling out of his bed, he grabbed it and unlocked it. But he instantly felt like destroying the cell phone, since the message that had arrived was from the cell phone's brand company, where it was a random advertisement announcing various things. Although in reality he ended up throwing the phone with great force against the wall, causing it to break. "Issei. If you don't want to even send me a message or communicate in any way, that's fine. After all, it seems that the Sitri only lie," he said, releasing some of the discomfort he had been keeping inside. Now, since he was upset, it took him a little longer to sleep, but he did, and the next day he felt horrible, and the dark circles under his eyes were quite noticeable, so he had to use some makeup to hide them, and when he noticed that they were barely noticeable, he went out. When he was arriving at the Kuo Academy he felt a very familiar energy, so he followed that energy and ended up arriving at an old building. For anyone it would be a simple old building, but for him it was not like that. It was the first time he went there, so he never noticed that there was a barrier around it, and when he noticed that it was a barrier that if he crossed it, whoever put it up would receive the information that someone had entered the building. Issei. This must be that girl Ria's Gremory's base. Don't come in, why am I coming in?" he said and asked himself as he was already opening the door. Walking through the interior of the building he saw that the old appearance was only on the outside, as inside it was quite clean and with good curtains and decorations. But the appreciation ended when he arrived in front of a double door. On the way there he tried to remember who the energy he felt earlier belonged to. He felt like he had the answer on the tip of his tongue, but since he couldn't figure out who it was, he decided to open the door at once and find out who that aura came from. Issei. Hello everyone. He said as soon as he entered, surprising everyone in the room. When the brown-haired boy opened the door, everyone fixed their gaze on it, and when they saw it, they were all surprised. Issei. Hello Ria-senpai, don't you dislike being hugged by this ugly guy? He asked a Retid who was hugged by the right arm of a blonde man in a suit. Rias? You. What are you doing here? She asked him surprised. Issei. I just came to meet someone. He answered simply. After answering him, he saw that the blonde had an angry expression at being called ugly, and that those who would be Ria's peerage had their eyes wide open without moving. Issei. Let's see, Ria-senpai, the 5 of them are part of your peerage, right? He asked, surprising her more than she was when she found out that the brown-haired boy knew about the supernatural. I never expected Taojo Kaneko, Kibayudo, Himigia Keno, Argento Asia and Saji Jinshiro to be part of your peerage. It really caught me off guard. And who's the ugly one? He asked at the end, looking at the blonde. Now I will make you burn with my flames, damn it. He said, expelling fire from his body while standing. Issei. Oh, this is incredible, so you are a phoenix. He said, sensing the strength of the flames. Razor. That's right, I am the 3rd heir of the Phoenix House, the powerful Razor foe. Issei. Hey, is he always this idiotic? He asked Rias and her peerage, interrupting what the blonde was saying, causing the group to hold back their laughter. Razor. Damn you. Damn you. He shouted, expelling his fire, suffocating the Retid's entourage with the heat and the force he gives off. Die. He shouted, throwing his fire towards the brown-haired boy. Issei just stood still without trying to dodge or defend himself, which scared Rias since she knew for a long time that her friend liked him. While everyone thought that the fire would consume Issei, he didn't think the same, and just by looking a little to the right his suspicions were confirmed. Just before the fire crashed into Issei's body, a wall of ice formed in the middle without even being broken by the phoenix fire. Razor Sama refrained from attacking a human, or the punishment will not be light. The voice of a woman very well known to Razor made him shiver slightly, and realizing that the person in front of him was a human, made everything worse, since they had rules of not hurting a human without reason. Razor. HMPH, it seems you are too lucky. He said, mocking the brown-haired boy in order to recover some of the honor that he made him lose. Kaneko. Are you okay senpai? She asked almost immediately after the blonde stopped. Issei. Of course, it's rare that you talk to me, so far I think we've only talked twice since the beginning of the year. He said to the albino. But even if Grafia-san hadn't stopped that fire, she wouldn't have received any damage. He said, looking clearly to his right. In his sight was a rather beautiful silver-haired girl in a maid outfit and a neutral expression just like he remembered. Rias. Wait a minute Haidu. Do you know Grafia? Explain how you know her. She said a rather demanded something that annoyed the brunette too much. Issei. Gremory, I'm sorry, but I'm not someone of your peerage for you to order me to explain something to you. If you want me to tell you how I know her, ask nicely. He said with a frown. Changing the subject, how have you been doing these years Grafia-san? He asked the silver-haired girl with a smile. Grafia. I was surprised to see him again. She said with her face and voice unchanged. Issei. It seems you're still the same. He commented while shaking his head. Could you tell me why a phoenix is here? Grafia. That's because Razor Sama is Ria-sama's fiancé. Issei. Promised. Oh, I understand, but why are you pairing her with someone so weak? He said, making Razor extremely angry. Razor. I'll prove to you who's the weak one right now. He said ready to attack him. Grafia. Razor Sama, I think I told you what would happen if you attack again. She warned him while freezing the ground a little around her, greatly scaring the blonde. Issei. And how scary you can be doesn't seem to have changed either. He said sweating a little as he felt the danger coming from her. Grafia. What exactly are you doing here? Issei. I sensed a familiar energy and followed it here, and since I didn't remember who it was, I went in to find out who it was and well, it was you. He spoke to her as if she were an old friend. But the truth is that I didn't expect Ria-senpai to be engaged to the 3rd heir of the Phoenix House. Rias. Well, I don't want to be engaged to him. She suddenly said out loud. Razor. Oh please Rias. He said approaching her face. Since the war the number of pure devils has decreased considerably, we both have the obligation to bring more pure devils into the world and for them to be very strong. Rias. I understand that very well Razor. She said removing the blonde's hand that was holding her face. I intend to have children so that the number of devils does not decrease. Razor. In that case there is no prob. Rias. But. I won't achieve that with you, I will marry the one I truly love and not an arrogant like you. she told him, crossing her arms, making her breasts more noticeable. Razor. Whether you like it or not, you will end up marrying me and having my children. Riaz. I'd rather die than have that fate, she said, keeping Razor's gaze locked. Rafia. Serzich's Sama predicted that something like this would happen, so he gave an option for the marriage not to happen. He said, to the great relief of the Redid, who did not want to wait to know what that option was. The way for the marriage not to happen is through a rating game. Razor. A rating game? Hahaha. Riaz, how unfortunate your fate is, it's impossible for you to beat me in a rating game. He said, laughing out loud. And I'll prove it to you. Watch. He said, snapping his fingers. Then a large orange magic circle with a Phoenix clan crest appeared in the room. And from that magic circle with fire 15 women appeared. Razor. As you can see, Riaz, I already have all my pieces occupied while you only have, maybe half. He asked her and then laughed. Issei. Hey Phoenix, I have a question. He suddenly spoke, silencing his laughter. Razor. Oh right, you are still here, go on, say your question. Issei. Is that girl your sister? He asked, pointing to a pretty girl with blonde hair and a pink dress. Razor. That's right, she's my sister, her name is Ravel Phoenix. Is there a problem? Issei. Yeah. How come you're so ugly and she's pretty? He asked, making the blonde blush and making Razor angry again. Razor. I swear I'll kill you. He said, boiling with rage. Now that I think about it, I don't even know your human name, consider it an honor that someone of my kind asks for your name. He spoke, returning to his arrogant tone. Issei. Yes, whatever you say. My name? I think there's no problem with saying it. He commented, looking at the ceiling. Very well, my name is Haidu Issei. Ravel. What? He asked, shouting too loudly, surprising everyone by that. Issei. Why are you screaming? He asked her about the unexpected scream. But before saying anything else, everyone saw how Ravel ran out and attacked the brunette with a hug, greatly confusing everyone without exception and infuriating a certain blonde who was about to explode with anger. Issei. Hey, why are you hugging me? He spoke to her while lying on the floor being hugged by the blonde. And before the blonde's words and actions, the place fell silent and the brown-haired boy's brain short-circuited. Ravel. Sama, we finally meet again. And then gave him a kiss on the cheek. Issei. What? Ravel. Sama, we finally meet again. She said very happily and gave him a kiss on the cheek. Issei. What? He thought without understanding absolutely anything. Razor. Ravel, release that filthy human right now. He shouted, expelling fire from his body. Ravel. No. She said simply and hugged the brunette tighter, holding her head against his chest. Faced with such a development, Riaz in her peerage said nothing, and Grafia was equally surprised, and it was noticeable on her face. Issei. Wait. How do you know me? And why do you call me that as if we were so close? With her questions, Ravel looked at his face, and with that Issei saw that she looked first surprised and then sad, leaving her forehead resting on his chest. Razor. Ravel, I told you to let him go. He said angrily again. And this time Ravel listened to him, parted from him and returned to the rest of her brother's peerage. Ravel. Sorry for acting that way on Sama. Razor. It doesn't matter. He said, making his flames disappear while looking hostilely at the brown-haired boy for a few seconds. Riaz, I agree to have a rating game against you, I will give you a period of 10 days to train. He said without laughing due to the previous events. Grafia. Since the time for the rating game has already been agreed upon, it is time for us to leave. Have a nice day, Arias-sama. She said, bowing slightly. From Grafia's feet a magic circle originated that expanded to cover Razor's feet, along with his peerage. Before disappearing, Ravel looked one last time at the brunette, who seemed to have not taken his gaze off her, but the look he had was of someone who saw a stranger, something that saddened her, so she lowered her gaze again, and with that disappeared from the human world. When they left, Issei was the center of attention, which made him feel weird. Issei. Can you stop staring at me so hard? Tiba. Issei-kun, how do you know Razor's sister? Issei. Did he really call me Issei-kun? He wondered, trying to find out if the blonde was going in the opposite direction. I don't know how he knows me, it's the truth. Riaz. I don't believe you, to begin with you shouldn't even know about the supernatural, it's useless for you to keep lying. She told him, confronting him. Issei. If you don't believe me, it's your problem, it seems that all your neurons went to those things. He told her, pointing with his finger at her breasts, which made her blush and cover her breasts with her arms. Bakeno. Please don't talk to Butchu like that. She said angrily upon hearing how she spoke to her friend. Issei. Okay, sorry about that. Riaz. Can you at least tell us how you know Grafia? She asked him in a friendly way this time. Issei. I met her by chance a few years ago while I was traveling through the underworld. he replied, surprising the Redeed upon learning that he had been in the underworld. Akeno. What were you doing there as a human? Issei. Well. Let's say that all my life I had been in the underworld. Rias. Are you human or are you half human? Issei. 100% human. He answered instantly. I could try it, but I don't feel like it. He answered lazily. Rias. Okay. I'll believe you. She said, massaging her forehead. Issei. Well, since Grafia has already left, I have no reason to stay here, and classes should have already started, so. Goodbye. He said, and before they said anything he left. After he left, Rias went to her chair behind the desk and slumped into it. Saji. But you. What are we going to do to beat that cocky guy? Rias. We only have one solution, and that is to train. She said, quite determined. In the next few days we will skip school in order to train. I will talk to Sona to give us permission. She said, standing up, about to go talk to her childhood friend. Saji. You and Kaichu are childhood friends, right? But you? Rias. That's right. Why does you ask? Saji. I don't know if it's something private or not, but I would like to know if Kaichu was always this serious and expressionless. He said, watching as Rias let out a sigh. Rias. Sona used to be quite cheerful and lively like any other girl. An example of that would be that she hid my dolls from me. She told them, surprising everyone since they didn't know that, and they didn't even expect the serious Sona Sitri to have done that. But from one day to the next her attitude changed completely. She almost didn't smile anymore, and when she did it was for a second, but that smile she showed was only fake. Some time later I learned that the day she changed was the day Lord Sitri, or her father, was almost killed by poison in his food, so I don't know what happened that day for Sona's big change, since just because of the attempt to kill her father, she shouldn't change that much. She finished saying, leaving everyone speechless. Hiba. Didn't you try to ask him what happened? Rias. Yes, I did, but she never told me. Whenever I brought up the subject she asked me not to ask anything. I've tried to find out what happened that day, but I could never find out, and I even tried many times to get Sona to smile again, but I never succeeded. Well, I think that's enough for today. We all have to go to class, and I have to talk to Sona. She said seriously, to which they agreed. After that talk everyone went to class. When it was time for recess, Rias went to the council to talk to Sona about whether she could give them permission to skip classes until the rating game was held. Since then, 2 days passed and the brown-haired boy noticed that it was strange that the Grimoire peerage had not appeared at the academy in 2 days, so as soon as the first recess began, he went to the council in search of answers. Issei. Excuse me, Kaichu. He said as soon as he was given permission to enter. Tsubaki. Good morning, Haidu. Issei. Shinra-senpai, please call me by my first name and not my last name. I already told you that I feel weird when people call me by my last name, although for many it is common. Tsubaki. If that's what you want, that's fine. She said, accepting her request at once. Once finished speaking, the second brunette in the room, who was sitting behind a desk, fixed her gaze on the brunette. Sona. I see you're in a bit of a hurry, Issei. Is something wrong? Even at this point Issei still felt very strange being called by his name by the person who almost got him killed. Issei. I've noticed that there are some students who have been absent these 2 days, and if I am not mistaken they are all from the occult club. I was wondering if it is due to a special reason. He said, noticing out of the corner of his eye how Haruko and Ria became somewhat tense. Sona. I gave them permission to miss class because they were doing a club activity. She told him an obvious lie. Issei. I see, well that was it. He fell before finishing when he felt something in the room that made him open his eyes wide and stay extremely still. Tsubaki. Is something wrong? He asked her, bringing her back to her senses. Issei. No. It's nothing. He said simply, and without acting weird he left the place. Almost all the girls were worried about the brunette's recent behavior, since he has been acting strange for days. They wondered what was happening to him while they continued with their tasks as members of the student council, without knowing that behind the door the brunette was excited and that after so much time he had a slight smile on his face. Issei. She came back. Serafall returned to the human world. He knew she must have had a problem, which is why she couldn't come, but now she came back. He said happily and with hopes of seeing her again. The rest of the day the brown-haired boy was very restless because he wanted to see Serafall again, who even though he got angry before, still loved her, and frequently told himself that she didn't answer his messages because she must be too busy to notice them. But now that he sensed her energy in the student council, he knew that he would finally see her again, which made him feel bad for doubting her. When classes ended he had already finished his entire part of the break in order to return home and meet the woman he loved, since if she appeared at the student council, then she would now appear at his house. When he got home, he almost kicked the door open because he was so impatient. But that impatience, excitement and joy that he had was fading from his body at great speed. And that was because he didn't feel Serafall's energy or smell anywhere in his house. It would be strange if he had gone to the student council after so long and he still hadn't shown up at her house, so an idea came to her head. Issei. She must be preparing something for so long without seeing or talking to each other. In that case, I'll just have to wait for her, he said, recovering some of the excitement of seeing her, but now he also had a little fear which he ignored. But even though she ignored it, over time it spread as a few hours passed and Serafall still did not appear in the house. Somewhat uneasy, Issei concentrated and checked if there was anyone near his house, but all he saw were only humans. Then as a second option he sent another message to the Mayu, and as she still did not respond he called her, but she was still the same as before. With frustration and some anger, he threw his second cell phone against the wall, breaking it just like the first one. Issei. Shit, I broke it. He cursed while picking up the parts of the cell phone, but stopped and looked at some parts, as if they were the most precious thing in the world. He visited Sona, but he doesn't even answer my messages and calls. I knew that in a difficult decision he would choose her, but. Are you really leaving me for no reason even when we always told each other how much we loved each other? He asked himself, letting his body fall to the ground, staring at the ceiling. Does that mean he left me? He asked the question he had denied for a long time. I think. He said without realizing that a tear came out of his right eye. You really can't trust the Sitri. With that thought he sat down and finished picking up the remains of the cell phone to see if he could fix it since he didn't want to buy a new one. As he was analyzing the parts of the cell phone, a memory came to mind. Issei. Now that I think about it. How does that girl called Ravel know me? Even the way she called me was as if we were close. Issei. He repeated the way she called him to see if he could remember something. I can't remember anything. Why don't I remember her, but she seems to know me. Hey Drake. She called him but nothing, then she had an excellent idea. Too bad the hacker Yuiku is too strong to beat him, plus his power is too cool. He said out loud while looking at his left arm on which the boosted gear appeared. Drake. I am many times stronger and I am 1,000 times cooler than the white one. He said almost shouting until he noticed where he was. Issei. You tricked me. Issei. It's because you didn't answer when I called you, but that doesn't matter. Tell me, were you awake when I met the Phoenix? Greg. The Phoenix. Of course, I couldn't sleep well because of how arrogant and conceited he was. He replied, making a drop of sweat appear on his face. Issei. Well then, do you know why that girl Ravel Phoenix hugged me and called me Issei? Greg. A Phoenix called you Issei. Ha 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 ha. Oh, this is amazing. I never expected someone would call you that. Ha 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 ha. Issei. Hey, why were you so surprised? You just said you were awake. Greg. I was awake for a few moments and then fell asleep, so a Phoenix called you that millimeters. If you expect me to tell you why she knows you and you don't, then I can't help you. I don't know anything about that. Now if that was all, I'll go to sleep. And with that the gauntlet disappeared and he settled down to sleep. Issei. Sure, sleep like you always do. He told her and stared at the time on a clock on the wall. It's late, it's obvious he won't come. He said to himself, standing up and heading to his room. You really can't trust the words of a Sitri. But those last words and negative thoughts against the Sitri, he ended up falling asleep. The next day Issei decided to leave the topic with Serafall aside. If she didn't want to even listen to him, then he wouldn't look for her. It hurt him, but if all Sitri were like that then he wouldn't get too involved with one. Right now Issei was in a dilemma as he remembered that in a few days there will be the rating game between Ria's Gremory and Razor Phoenix to decide whether their marriage is called off or not. What he was thinking about was how to watch the trading game, since he wants to see how they defeat that spoiled girl who demanded things from him, even though she wasn't of his peerage, and she wasn't even a devil to see her as a superior. Issei. I'll have to do that. Greg. Are you sure? After several minutes of thinking about it, he came to the only answer, and of course before it was a suggestion that he questioned with Drake, but not finding another way he definitely decided on that only option. Issei. I don't like having to do it, but it's the only way. He answered the dragon's doubt. Greg. If that's what you want, I have no way to stop you. With that, the brown-haired boy left his house and walked towards the boring classes. On the way he thought about which way was best for his plan, then when he saw that he was already arriving, he discarded silly thoughts and focused on what was important. He entered the academy grounds and continued his way inside the building until he reached the doors of the student council, where before knocking on the door, he let out a sigh, as if preparing for what he would do next. Come in, a woman's voice rang out from behind the door after knocking on it. Issei. Excuse me, Kaichu. He said, and upon entering he saw that all the girls were there. What time do you arrive? Do you even sleep? He wondered since many times he was the last to arrive and that he always arrived early. Sona. Is something wrong, Issei? She asked him with her eyebrow raised when she saw him holding his left arm. Issei. Oh, it's nothing, it's just a pain in my left arm. He told her, clearly lying. Baruko. She must have slept on his arm. Does it bother her a lot? She asked him, coming up to him and making him sit on the couch. Does this make the discomfort go away? She asked him while massaging his arm, surprising the brown-haired boy and making a certain brunette twitch her eye. Issei. Thanks, Nomura-san. He thanked her, making him feel bad because she had to do that when he was lying, but then he saw how the brunette puffed out one of her cheeks. Baruko. Senpai, call me by my name, you always want others to call you by your name, so you will do it with me too. She said defiantly. Issei. In that case. Baruko-san. He told her, seeing how she showed him a big smile. In that case, stop using senpai on me, and if you can't then I will continue calling you Nim. He didn't continue being surprised by what he heard. Baruko. Of course, Issei-kun. At this point the veins on Sona's face were standing out and her eye twitch looked very dangerous. For a moment the brown-haired boy forgot what he was going to do, but he remembered in time, so he decided to continue with it before classes started. Ugh. They all heard the brown-haired boy complain in pain while holding his left arm. Sona. What's wrong, Issei? She asked him, starting to get nervous and upset. Issei. I don't know. My arm. I feel like it's burning arg. He complained of the pain much louder, alarming everyone. At that, everyone, especially Sona, opened their eyes so wide that it seemed like they would pop out of their eyes, since right where her left arm was, there was now a red gauntlet with an emerald-colored gem on the back of her hand. Sona. That's it. That's it. She rubbed her eyes to find out if what she saw wasn't an illusion. Tsubaki. Kaichu, is that a? He left the question unfinished as he saw his king nod his head. Issei. What is this? He asked no one in particular, feigning ignorance. Sona. Issei. She spoke seriously, getting his attention. Have you had strange dreams lately? Issei. Strange dreams. He repeated the question and acted as if he was trying to remember. I think so, it was surrounded by fire, and I think that in it, a red dragon appeared. Why the question, Kaichu? Does it have something to do with this appearing out of nowhere? He asked, trying to seem very confused, which he achieved very well. Sona. This is incredible. She said, sitting up straight and placing her arms on the table. Issei, I want you to pay close attention to what I'm going to tell you next, and I want you to know that all of this is real. With that, he began to tell the story of the supernatural, the war they had, and the artifacts that were created by God, so that humans could defend themselves from supernatural beings. As she finished explaining things, Sona saw that the brunette was shocked by what he had just heard. Issei. So. This is one of those artifacts created by God? He asked, looking at the gauntlet quite surprised. Sona. That's right, those artifacts are called sacred gear, but yours is a longinus. Let me explain it better. Among all the sacred gears, there are 13 that are called longinus. The longinus are so powerful that with them, one is capable of killing a god. Issei. A god? Really? He asked, standing up a little exalted by that information. Sona. But even among the longinus there are some stronger than others. In your case, yours is a middle-class longinus, but that doesn't mean it isn't powerful, since yours is quite special. Issei. What does this longinus do? Sona. Your longinus is called boosted gear. It allows you to increase your strength twice every 10 seconds, and from what I heard, it also has the ability to make you stronger depending on your emotions or your determination. And not only that, inside this sacred gear resides the soul of one of the strongest creatures of all, the celestial dragon of domination. Issei. A dragon. There's a dragon inside this. Amazing. He said excitedly, but then he started to see the gauntlet's design everywhere. But. The design of this thing is ugly. Greg. Dare you say it again? The girls were surprised as they saw how the voice came from the gem, and they instantly understood who that voice was from. Issei. Are you the dragon? Greg. That's right, oh wow, it seems like you're just a human, but everyone else is a devil, how interesting. Issei. What? Are they all devils? He asked, seeing each one getting nervous. Sona. That's right, Issei, we are all devils, but they are half human and half devil. Issei. Them. And you, Kaichu? Sona. I am a pure-blood devil, and not just any devil, I am the heiress of the Sitri house. Issei. Sitri? He asked, supposedly her name is Sona Sitri. Sona. Oh, that's right, I enrolled in this academy under the name Sona Sitri, but my real name is Sona Sitri. Issei. Sona. He repeated the name and began to think, suddenly scaring the brunette. That name suits you better, Kaichu. He said, surprising and cheering the brunette. And now what do I do? He confused the group with his question. From what you just told me, humans with sacred gear are wanted, and if you don't agree to join a site it's possible that they will kill you as a precaution. In that case, what do I do? Now is the time when he will propose that I join his peerage. I really don't like it much, but it's the only way to see how that spoiled girl is defeated. He thought, laughing internally. Sona. Well. I know it's sudden, but I'd like you to join my peerage if you don't mind. She said very politely and with some fear that he would reject her. Issei. It's okay, I have no problem. He said, making the brunette extremely happy, not because she will have him under her orders, but because by turning him into half-devil, his life will be extended and she will be able to spend much more time with him. From a small magic circle he took out a box, and when he opened the box, there were some chess pieces. In the box there was a rook piece, a knight and 7 pawns. Sona grabbed the rook piece, but it didn't enter Issei's soul, so she tried the knight, and that didn't work either. Sona. I was expecting it not to work with these two. She said, fixing her gaze on the 2 pieces. He then took the pawn pieces and tried to get them in, but it didn't work. Despite having 2 mutated pawns, it didn't seem like the brown-haired boy was going to be able to be in his peerage, and he didn't like that. He tried with 6 pawns together, but the brown-haired boy's body rejected the pieces. Then he looked at the last pawn he had left, and biting his lower lip, he gathered all the hope he had so that with that last one, the brown-haired boy could enter his peerage. Sona. Please let this work. The brunette brought the 7 pawns close to the brown-haired boy's body, and like a miracle they began to enter his body, which made Sona extremely happy, but without wasting time she began to recite the words to reincarnate him into a devil. As he finished reciting the spell, the blue light surrounding the brunette's body disappeared. Issei looked at his hands and felt refreshed. Sona. Now you are of my peerage Issei, you are a devil. She told him, showing him a smile. Issei. I feel stronger. Sona. That's normal, then I'll tell you the advantages and disadvantages of being a devil. She said, starting to walk towards her desk. Haruko. Issei-kun, congratulations. She said, giving him a hug. Thanks to Haruko, the others welcomed the brown-haired boy, since from now on he will be their companion for many years. At this moment Sona was holding back her frustration because Haruko was hugging the brunette's left arm, which returned to normal, as Ria hugged the brunette's neck from behind. As he was still sitting on the couch, he felt the brunette's breasts on his head. Although it may seem like a wall of steel, if something like that happened to him, he would have no choice but to contain himself, and now the brunette felt in danger, as the girls surrounded him and spoke to him with smiles. Especially Momo, who never showed him a smile before, and the worst of all is that most of the girls had big breasts, and being that he felt Ria's breasts on his head being pressed harder, and feeling Haruko's breasts on his arm did not help at all, it even made everything worse. Not only was he trying to keep his instincts in check, but he was also trying to keep his friend in check. Seeing how the brown-haired boy was very nervous, Tsubaki laughed a little and turned to his king. Tsubaki. Congratulations Kaichu, now you are closer to him. He said in a low voice, causing the brunette to blush slightly at his words. Sona. But that's not all, I still have a long way to go, and when I recover my memory my goal will be more difficult, but I don't plan on giving up. She told him, determined to get the brown-haired boy's forgiveness for what he did to her years ago. Tsubaki. Well, at least enjoy that you have now joined his peerage as his pawn. And that wasn't something that needed to be told to him, since Sona was already very happy, since she wouldn't like to be separated from him again without him having had the opportunity to correct his mistake. After becoming a devil and being part of Sona's peerage, Issei paid attention to the advantages and disadvantages that devils had, some of the traditions and the names of the clans that survived. He also found out that Rias along with the rest of the occult club were also devils, and that the reason they were missing classes was because they were training for a raiding game. Issei spent the next few days making contracts as that was his new duty as a devil. In some contracts he met strange people, and although he would never say it, he also met very beautiful girls. He was also practicing some of the devil powers such as manipulating others, using his wings, and what intrigued him the most was the advantage of being able to erase someone's memory, something he never knew about, even though he had been surrounded by devils all his life. Issei. Memory erasure. Is it possible? What? Is that why I don't remember her? He wondered, since now everything would make sense of why he doesn't remember anything about that girl named Ravel. According to Sona, when the raiding game is we will go to the underworld to see the fight in person. If I can find her, maybe I can know something more. He said, talking to himself. It's a bit late, the fight will be the day after tomorrow, I just have to wait one more day, and maybe my doubts will be resolved. He said, starting to walk to his room. It's true. Maybe I can. No, if she doesn't look for me then I won't look for her, I've already waited too long. He said with a serious expression. The next day was normal like any other. Luckily the day the rating game would be on Saturday, so he wouldn't have to worry about missing class. When it was finally Saturday, Issei was arriving at the student council room in his school clothes at Sona's request. When he arrived he knocked on the door and waited to be let in, but instead they opened the door for him, and the one who did it was the beautiful Tsubaki. "Tsubaki. Issei-san, you don't have to knock on the door, we're the only ones here right now," she said, letting him in, even though he was the second to last of all. "Issei. Haruko hasn't arrived yet. That's strange of her." And as soon as he said those words the door that had just been closed was flung open. "Haruko. Sorry for being late, huh? Sorry Issei-kun," she said to the brunette on the floor as he was hit by the door very hard. "Issei. Don't worry. Ugh," he said and played dead. "Haruko. Don't die," she said out loud and moved him up and down so hard that the brown-haired boy's head hit the ground. "Issei. I'm okay. I'm okay, please stop doing that." He spoke quickly because even though it may not have seemed like it, he had strength and his grip was very good. "Sona. I didn't know you were capable of joking, Issei," she told him, trying not to laugh at seeing the funny scene from seconds ago. "But leaving that aside, we are all here so we must go now. Make sure you don't leave the circle or you won't teleport." With her words everyone positioned themselves behind her, and then a large blue magic circle with a Sitri crest appeared under everyone's feet. Seeing that crest upset the brown-haired boy too much since it brought back bad memories. The circle began to rise, and with it their bodies disappeared. When the circle was reaching their faces everyone closed their eyes. When Issei heard quite a bit of noise and felt too much demonic energy, he opened his eyes and saw that he was in a room where there were a large number of people who were obviously devils. The room was extremely huge, so there was no problem with those devils feeling cramped, and apart from them, there were some screens that showed the rating game area. "Momo. This is amazing, Kaichu, the place is very big." She was the first to speak out of everyone. "Sona. It seems that there are more devils than I expected." She spoke with a hand on her chin, then her gaze fixed a little to her right. "There are no." As soon as she said that, everyone looked in the same direction as her and understood her words, showing a smile. The girls smiled because this made them laugh a bit, but the brown-haired boy didn't. When he saw where they were looking, he focused his sight on that place, and when he saw who was approaching, he took a few steps back. "Serafall. I am so glad to see you." The famous Mao Leviathan appeared in her magical girl costume, and as soon as she got close enough she jumped over and hugged her little sister. "Sona. 1E-sama, please don't do that, much less in public," she said, too embarrassed since many people started to look at her. "Serafall. But I missed you so much," he said, hugging her tighter. And then he heard someone click their tongue, but he didn't give it any importance. "Serafall. Hey girls, are you still taking care of Sotan?" "Sona. 1E-sama, please stop using that tan," she said, blushing with embarrassment. "Tsubaki. We are part of your peerage, so it is obvious that we will always take care of you, Leviathan-sama," she replied, bowing a little. "Serafall. Su-chan, you're still boring." "Tsubaki. Su-chan." She repeated the word, turning red in embarrassment just like her king. "Haruko. Leviathan-sama, I have some news for you," he said quite happily. "Kaichu has a new member, and that's not the best. In order to reincarnate him he had to use his 7 remaining pawns, and that's even though 2 of them were the mutated ones he gave him before," he said, surprising the black-haired girl quite a bit. "Serafall. Is he really that strong to occupy all the remaining pawns? Who is he and where is he?" she asked, trying to find him. "Sona. He should be here, where did Issei go?" she asked to no one in particular. But upon hearing the name Sona mentioned, Serafall turned to stone, wanting to believe that she heard wrong. "Serafall. So. What is the name of your new piece?" she asked very nervously. "Sona. His name is Haidu Issei," she revealed, making her fear true. "Serafall. Issei joined Sona's peerage. How is this possible? He wasn't supposed to join. What's going on?" "Sona. Oh, there you were," she said, going through the crowd and starting to get someone out of there. Seeing him, Serafall became very nervous, but also happy to see him again. "Sona. Were you hiding?" she asked him, seeing no reason for him to get into the crowd. "Issei. Sorry Kaichu, I saw the place and when I realized I had gotten into the midst of the devils," he told him with a slight smile, a lie. "Sona. It's okay, it doesn't matter, come, I want to introduce you to someone. She is the current Mao Leviathan Serafall Sitri, and if you have any doubts, she is my older sister," she said, seeing how the brown-haired boy stared at his sister. "Momo. Kaichu, I think they already knew each other," she said, suddenly remembering that day she stayed cleaning the classroom. "Haruko. Huh. Oh, that's right, I completely forgot," she said, remembering that day when she was able to hold the brown-haired boy's hand for a long time, causing her to blush again. Sona. What? You two already knew each other? She asked the two in question. Issei. I met her by chance one day when I was walking around the city, and then I saw her again that day after school. I never expected her to be the Mao Leviathan. It's an honor to meet you, Leviathan-sama, he said, bowing his body without showing a smile, something that the brunette didn't like at all. Serafall. And don't be so formal. You are from the Sotan peerage, so you don't have to act that way. Issei. I'm sorry, but since you are so important I can't call you anything else, he said, looking her in the eyes. The moment Serafall looked into his eyes, she noticed that the brunette was different. Normally, even if he acted, she would see some affection in his eyes, but now she saw none of that. Sona. It seems that the rating game is going to begin. Come, Issei, we have a better place to watch, she said, starting to walk through a door, followed by the other girls. Issei also began to walk to follow her, but his sleeve was held slightly by the brunette. Serafall. Issei-kun, what happened? Why did you join Sona's peerage? She asked him, but the first thing the brown-haired boy did was to forcefully move his arm that was being held by the brunette's hand. Issei-kun. Issei. I'm surprised you act like nothing happened, he told her coldly, surprising her with the tone he spoke to her in. That same tone made her remember what happened the day she had recovered her memories, and out of fear she felt that he would leave her if she didn't do something. Serafall. Issei, wait, I don't know what you're talking about, she said, moving him away from the people so they wouldn't hear the conversation. Issei. Are you still going to see me as a fool? He asked with a frown. I don't have time to listen to you, I have to follow Sona, he said, trying to pass by her but was stopped by Serafall's arm that prevented him from doing so. Serafall. Since when do you call her Sona? You won't leave until you tell me what's wrong with you, and if you try to leave I'll be forced to scream, and you won't like what I'm going to scream at all, she told him with an angry expression, and with her words, the brunette got scared because if she screamed something that would make him look bad, she would be heard by many high-ranking devils. Issei. Okay, I won't leave, he said, letting out a sigh at the end as he had no escape. Serafall. Well, now tell me, what is that attitude you've been giving me for a while now, she said, putting her hands on her waist. Issei. So to answer that, let me ask you something, where is your cell phone? Serafall. Here, she said, showing him the cell phone, which made him quite angry. Why are you asking about him? Issei. If it's in perfect condition, why didn't you answer my messages and calls? He asked her, looking at her with hostility, frightening her with that look that she didn't expect from him. Serafall. Texts. Calls. She asked, blinking several times. Wait. Don't tell me you're behaving like this because, she said, trying to understand why the brunette's new attitude towards her. Oh, how stupid I am, she said, falling to the ground with her legs apart to the sides while covering her face with her hands. Issei. What are you doing? Serafall. When were you sending me messages? She asked him, still covering her face, leaving the brunette confused by her question. Issei. I sent you messages every day and several, he told her, listening to how the brunette seemed to be screaming with her mouth closed. Serafall. What about the calls? Issei. Every day too, but not that many, he told him, clearly hearing how he seemed to scream with his mouth closed. Why are you doing that? He asked him, very confused. Serafall. Sorry, she said, suddenly surprising him with that word he didn't expect. I should have gone and told you, but I had a lot of work, she said, removing her hands from her face, showing him a sad face. Did you want to know why I didn't answer your messages and calls? She asked him, to which he nodded. The truth is that I froze my cell phone, and when the ice disappeared, I accidentally destroyed it too. Issei. What? He said, unable to believe what he had just heard. Then why did you never come back to visit me? Or why did you go to the student council a few days ago but didn't go to my house afterwards? Serafall. I had too much work. And I went to visit Sona to give her something she asked me for. Were those the reasons for your cold attitude towards me? She asked him, watching as Issei hit himself hard in the face with the palm of his hand. Issei. If you're stupid, then what am I? He said, and then he looked at the brunette. Sarah-chan. I don't think we should continue, he said, making her happy again for being called that, but then he got terrified when he heard those last words. Serafall. What? Why not? Issei. Why? You don't deserve me, he said, confusing her and making her happy that it wasn't because he didn't love her. Do you know how much I thought that you had cheated on me and that you didn't answer me because you got tired of me? He asked her, surprising her with the thought he had been having. Serafall. Wait, Issei. Since when have you been thinking like this? Issei. Since the next day when we last saw each other. he told her, leaving her speechless knowing how much he felt betrayed and abandoned again. Serafall. You really are a fool. She said laughing a little while standing up. Issei. Hey, it's not funny, it hurt every time I looked at my cell phone and you still didn't answer me. He said, grabbing one of her cheeks and stretching it. Serafall. Don't do that to me. She said, hitting his chest obviously without strength. Serafall had her eyes closed, and when she opened them she saw the brunette showing her a smile, and without realizing it, he had already stopped pulling her cheek. The next thing she saw was how the brunette approached her, and without saying anything or looking around, he kissed her on the lips tenderly. Feeling the brunette's contempt for a moment for the second time and then feeling him kiss her made her unconsciously shed a tear. She wrapped her arms around the brunette's neck and managed to deepen the kiss, while the brunette surrounded her waist with his arms and brought her closer to him, which made the brunette feel those breasts that he loved. All of this was happening without the other devils noticing since the confrontation between the peerage of Ria's Gremory and Razor Phoenix had started a while ago, which made everyone have their eyes on the fight. Not a single one noticed that the Mao Leviathan, Serafall Sitri, was kissing Issei. As soon as Issei separated from Serafall, he looked at her beautiful blue eyes and proceeded to place his hand on the brunette's left cheek. Issei. You don't know how much I needed that. He told her, kissing her again, but this time with short kisses. Serafall. There are a lot of people, they will see us. She told him, blushing. Issei. What's wrong with them seeing us? He asked, surprising the brunette. Serafall. You really don't have a problem with revealing what we have? Issei. That's right, I have no problem, but I think you do, right? He said, making her look away. Don't feel bad, I know it's hard to announce that you're the partner of the person who supposedly tried to kill your father. He said, touching his forehead to hers. Serafall. But you don't. Issei. Just because you believe it is enough for me. He said, showing him a smile. Serafall. You know what? There's someone else who thinks you're innocent. She said, getting nervous when she saw how the brown-haired boy was erasing his smile. Issei. Sona? He asked her, to which she affirmed. I don't care. He said, frowning and looking elsewhere. Serafall. Issei. Issei. I can understand that she did that just because I'm a girl, but it still hurt me that she didn't trust me. I know she feels bad and that she knows I'm innocent, but what was it that made her realize that? He said, separating himself a little from her while he watched the devils watch the big fight. Those were the last words I told her that made her maybe believe me. I can talk to her like anyone else. I don't hate her, but I haven't forgiven her either, so don't expect us to be very close just because she thinks I'm innocent, if you remember what I told you before, so that I can consider forgiving her. She will have to apologize to me, and I don't think it will be soon since she doesn't know that I have recovered my memory and I want it to stay that way. Serafall. I understand. He responded sadly, but understanding what the brown-haired boy was saying, and if that was the case, then he hoped his sister would do it as soon as possible. Issei. By the way, with all this we didn't see the game. As soon as she said that, Serafall remembered the reason why she was there, so she quickly looked at the screens where the fight was being broadcast, and when she did she only heard one thing. Ria's Gremory has surrendered, Razor Phoenix is the winner of this rating game. Serafall. Ria's Chan. Lost. She said in shock since she knows what losing meant. Issei-kun, you were here. The girl's lively voice was heard, and when they looked towards the fountain they saw a brunette with a ponytail approaching quickly. Issei. What's wrong, Raruko-chan? He asked without noticing how the brunette next to him had a twitch in her eye. Seeing the brunette, he remembered what had happened in the brunette's classroom, and now hearing how they called each other, he noticed that their relationship became much more intimate. Raruko. What do you mean, what's going on? When the raiding game started, he wasn't with us, so we couldn't go look for him. We were waiting for you to arrive, but you never showed up. What were you doing? Why are you with Serafall Sona? She asked, looking at the brunette who was holding her gaze. Issei got nervous as they both stared at each other without showing a smile. He could even swear he saw sparks in the air, so before something bad happened he decided to interrupt. Issei. Haruko-chan, sorry, but Serafall Sona wanted to talk to me for a while. He said with a nervous smile. Haruko. If that's the case, there's no problem, now we have to go back to Kaichu, come on Issei-kun. She said, taking his hand and interlacing their fingers and quickly leaving in the direction where Sona was. Serafall watched with jealousy as they held hands until she saw how the brunette turned her head without stopping running to see her, and as soon as they both saw each other, Haruko showed her a big smile of victory, which made Serafall feel angry, knowing that she did it on purpose. Serafall. No way. He said, exerting force with a fist. After leaving that room where the high-class devils still remained, they arrived at a fairly large room, although obviously smaller than the previous one. In that room was Sona sitting on a luxurious red armchair and the rest of her peerage surrounded by many luxurious objects that were in the room. But that didn't matter to the brown-haired boy, since next to Sona was a redeed in armor and a cape being accompanied by a platinum-haired maid, who opened her eyes in surprise upon seeing him there. "Sona. You're finally here," she said, becoming the same as the redeed. "Issei. Sorry Kaichu, but Serafall Sona wanted to talk to me for a while, but we lost track of time, so I couldn't come to see the rating game." He apologized while scratching the back of his neck. "Sona. It's okay, I hope it didn't bother you a little," she told him somewhat nervously in case her sister bothered him with so many questions. "Issei. Not at all." "Sona. Well, Issei, this is the Mao Lucifer Serzage's Gremory," he said, introducing the redeed, who looked at him with a smile. "Issei. It's a pleasure to meet the Mao Lucifer," he said, bowing half of his body. "Serzages. It's a pleasure to meet you. I heard that you are the wielder of the boosted gear. Is that true?" "Issei. It seems so." "Serzages. Then it means that Sona has won a powerful piece," he said, looking at the brunette again. "Issei. Kaichu, how was the fight?" "Because of the conversation I had with Serafall Sona, I didn't pay any attention, the only thing I heard was Grafia-sen's announcement," he said, looking at his king. "Sona. Unfortunately they had no chance against Razor, they managed to defeat several of his pieces, but in the end they were too tired to beat Razor. Saji tried to defeat him, but he couldn't do anything," she said with a sigh at the end. "Issei. What sacred gear does Saji have?" "Sona. One called Absorption Line, from what he said while fighting it, gave him the ability to drain power and make the portion he steals his own," she said, impressing the brown-haired boy with the sacred gear that the blonde possessed. "Issei. It's quite useful." "Serzages. It's possible, but he didn't train too much, so he can't drain too much magic power," he said his opinion about his sacred gear. "Issei. And where are they now?" "Grafia. They should be here in a few moments." And as soon as he said that, the doors where Issei and Raruko had entered were opened, and those who entered were the annoying blonde with airs of grandeur who had a big smile along with his peerage, and behind them came Riaz and her peerage with a bad look, especially Riaz, who was biting her lower lip. "Serzages. Well Razor, since you have won the rating game, the marriage you have with Riaz will remain standing," he told him without showing a smile, since he did not want his pretty little sister to marry that man. "Razor. Ha 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 ha, wasn't it obvious that I was going to win?" he said arrogantly, looking at Riaz, who lowered her head while clenching her fists tightly. Then, when he paid attention to the others who were there, he stared at the brown-haired boy, and with that his smile disappeared. "Razor. What is this filthy human doing here? I can't stand breathing the air he's already contaminated with his mere presence. Go away at once, you disgust the sight of me," he said rudely, not caring that Serzages was there. Issei could handle some insults, but the way Razor spoke to him and the words he said made him quite angry, since he not only insulted him, he also insulted the other girls in the council, since he noticed how he looked at them when he said all that, but he also noticed his lustful expression when he saw their bodies. "Issei. Hey, burning bird, why don't you shut up? I can't stand it when you open your big mouth, it gives me headaches," he said seriously with a very annoyed frown. "Razor. What did you say? You dare to talk to me like that, being a phoenix?" he asked while keeping his gaze on the brown-haired boy. "Ravel. Ani-sama, please stop." "Razor. Don't interrupt Ravel, and don't you dare defend this human either," he said, almost shouting at her, causing her to step back and remain silent. "Issei. Oh, how unexpected, besides being arrogant and conceited, you are also a disgusting brother," he told him after seeing how he treated his sister. "Razor. Why do you never shut up?" "Issei. Maybe because you're still breathing," she replied, provoking him even more. "Razor. I swear you'll pay for this, let's go girls," he said, starting to walk towards the exit. "Issei. It's true, I almost forgot, Herr Ravel, wait," he said, walking quickly and stopping in front of her, surprising her with that action. "Ravel. What? What do you want?" she asked him, a little blushing being so close to him. "Razor. Herr Ravel, why are you stopping? Just ignore him and come," he said, annoyed at seeing how the brunette interacted so familiarly with his sister. Ravel. But. He was planning to speak, but because his brother was so angry he was going to walk towards where he was, but was stopped by an arm. "Issei. Hey, is your sister your pet or something? She doesn't have to follow everything you say," he told her while standing in front of her. "So stop giving her orders when you're just her brother. Unfortunately," he said the last thing, letting out a sigh. "Razor. You. Very well. Do you want to stay with that human? Then stay, come on girls," he said, retreating, boiling with anger, being followed by the girls. When they left, Issei turned around and noticed that Serzich's, Grafia, Ria's, Sona and the peerage of both were with their eyes wide open, and some of the girls had their mouths slightly open. She didn't pay attention to it, so she focused her sight on the one who was the main topic in the discussion with the blonde, and who was a little blushing. Issei. Are you okay? He asked her with a kind and gentle smile which made the blonde blush more. Ravel. Of course I'm fine, even though I didn't need your help I appreciate it. She said, looking at the wall with a red face. Issei. Wait. Is it possible that it's a Sona? Issei, are you crazy? She asked him, making him react and realize that the others were approaching him. Now Razor will try to make your life impossible. She told him with concern since she knows what he is capable of. Issei. Don't worry, I'm confident I can beat him easily. He told her, causing the brunette to open her eyes at what he said. Sona. Issei. How can you say that when you just awakened your sacred gear a few days ago? Ravel. Huh? Did you wake him up a few days ago? She asked confused, turning to look at the brown-haired boy. Tsubaki. That's right, a few days ago we woke him up and in doing so we proposed that he join the Kaichu peerage to keep him safe from possible attacks. Rias. What piece did he use and what is his sacred gear? She asked him, somewhat intrigued since her plan to make him part of her peerage had failed, so she at least wanted to know what sacred gear he has. Issei. Well, according to Kaichu what I have is the boosted gear which makes me the Sekiryuite. Was that the name Kaichu? Sona. You're right Issei. She said with a smile watching as Ria's mouth was open. Rias. The Sekiryuite. I lost the chance to have the Sekiryuite as a servant. Damn. How did Sona get so lucky? If only that fallen angel had accomplished her job I would have had the Sekiryuite in my peerage and gotten rid of Razor. She thought with frustration, anger and jealousy, not for not having the brown-haired boy himself, but because she didn't have the Sekiryuite under her control. Ria's expression was seen by Issei and Sona, who completely guessed the thought she had and couldn't be more disappointed in her, Sona, because she is her childhood friend, and Issei, because if he had had a common life, he would have ended up under the command of someone who only wanted power for his whims. Issei also saw out of the corner of his eye how Ravel seemed very confused, something that intrigued him quite a bit. Ravel. But. He had already woken him up a long time ago. She said in a low voice without being heard except for the brown-haired boy who put all his auditory sense into what she was saying. Issei. It's true, she knows me and knows that I awakened the boosted gear a long time ago, that means that my memory of her was completely erased. He thought, realizing that what he suspected was true. But if it's true, who erased my memory? Serzich's. I'm sorry to intervene, but I want to tell you Rias that since your marriage with Razor is still going on, you will get married tonight. He told her with a sad expression. Rias hearing that clenched her fist so tightly that she could make them bleed thanks to her nails. Rias. I understand. She replied, looking at the ground without wanting to look up. Sona. I'm sorry Rias, Serzich's Sama, we are leaving now although. We will return for Ria's wedding. She said, feeling bad for her friend. Sona approached the girls of her peerage ready to use the magic circle that would take them to the student council room of the human world, but someone was missing to return. Sona. What's wrong Issei? We have to go back. She said, focusing her sight on the brunette who was still next to the blonde. Issei. I'm sorry Kaichu, but I would like to stay a little longer. He said, surprising everyone. I would like to talk a little longer with Ravel if you don't mind. Sona. But how would you go back? She couldn't finish because Ravel suddenly spoke. Ravel. I can take him to the human world when we're done. She said with a happy smile at being able to spend more time with the brown-haired boy. Sona, seeing the clear intentions of the blonde phoenix, had to restrain herself from forcing the brunette to return, but since she didn't want to be like Rias, a spoiled brat who wants everything she wants and says done, she had to give him permission to stay, since if he wanted to stay, she wasn't the one to force him to leave. Sona. Okay, although if you take too long just wait for us since we will come later. She said, starting the teleportation. When they left, Issei bowed and said a few words to Serzich's. After that he took Ravel's hand, causing her to blush, and with that he led her out of the room and continued walking until he considered that he had gone far enough and that there was no one nearby. Issei. We'll be fine here. He said, looking at the empty surroundings. Ravel. Issei-sama. What did you want to talk to me about? She asked him, unable to help but think of bad things, making her face turn red. Issei. Ravel. He named her, starting to approach her and corner her against the wall, making her think that one of the things she thought would really happen. I want. He told her, approaching her face without knowing that the blonde's thoughts were flying through her imagination of what he would do to her. Tell me how you met me. Ravel was surprised at her request, and with that her blush went away. With her request, she assumed that the option that she lost her memory is the correct one, which made her very sad. Ravel. That means. He doesn't remember the promise. He said in his mind, clearly remembering the promise they both made a long time ago. That's it guys. Hopefully you all enjoyed it. See you in the next part.